Live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new thing we're doing.
Angela, Megan, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
All right, cool. That's a good start. So, yeah, everybody, welcome. We got a pretty interesting show tonight. We're going to talk about some tough subjects here. Angela's going to share her story. She's been advocating and fighting for the truth for a very long time, and she's finally going to get to uninterruptedly tell her story. And we also got Megan Walsh over here, who's going to also have some stuff to add into it. I'm very excited about that. It's been a while since we've been able to do a space. We got Sean also. He's going to, both of our voices are going to be coming out of this Isaac's Army icon. So you'll be hearing two different voices coming out here, but right now it's Dave. But yeah, let's get this thing underway. Angela and Megan, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
So Angela, you've had a pretty rough life as far as your childhood and everything, but you haven't stopped at all. You've kept going and fighting. Do you want to tell us a little bit of how everything started?
I mean, I've been going since I was 5 years old. I didn't really start fighting the system till 2018. 2007 to 2018 was more getting a grasp on everything. A lot of circles, you know what I mean? A lot of people that had the ability to give me clarity chose not to for self-preservation. And then once I started digging into things and going public and getting some traction, that seems to be where they wanted to speak up and control the way I spoke about things that had happened to me.
Okay.
So if you want me to jump in, I can.
Yeah, give people a little bit of background story of what exactly you went through and what you're fighting right now.
So I am trying to expose the fact that I was kidnapped and illegally adopted as a baby. My father was handed a baby October 27th, 1987, here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the day he became a Green Beret. I'm exposing that they kidnap these babies, illegally adopt them into military families, and then utilizing TRICARE, test and torture them like human guinea pigs for research purposes. My sealed adoption file is missing from vital records, which is a federal offense. It's in the state of Ohio, so I'm currently stuck in legal for 2.5 years now, almost 3, trying to get access to that. My father was killed on Father's Day in 2007, and then I did find my birth mother even without that, and then she was killed on my birthday in 2018. So when she died, I took that year to recalibrate and then forward and start speaking. But my dad was 3rd generation Special Forces. His name was Master Sergeant Stephen Maggard. He served here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I know he joined the Army in 1981, became a Green Beret in 1987, served full 20 years, and then taught the SEER course after retirement, and then redid, the Q qualification course for Special Forces. So he was active in the community after his retirement. My grandfather, Sanders Eugene Maggard, he was a part of Operation Jedi Warrior, also known as the 1st Earth Battalion here at Fort Bragg in the 80s. They made a movie about it called The Men That Stare at Goats, and it was a project inside of the Stargate Project where my grandparents originally met. My grandmother's name is Anne Elizabeth Jupman, DJUPMAN. Some of her NDA agreements are declassified on CIA.gov. She was a psychic remote viewer for the CIA, the DIA, and INSACOM, and she's still currently alive today. She worked with Hal Puthoff, Ingo Swann, Joe Moneagle from the very beginning, and she was a part of other projects, but I can get in trouble for talking about it because those ones are still classified, but I do have the documents. That's the tough part, is I know more than I'm allowed to speak on. It's just, I'm not trying to go to jail while fighting for my own justice, so I'm still trying to figure out loopholes to avoid that.
So, wow, those are some interesting
Oh, there's still more.
fact.
That's just a halfway point.
So the psychic abilities from your grandmother, was this like provoked by the military, or how did this?
Yeah.
I mean,
So she was originally a colonel in the U.S. Army. She was worked for a company called Inscom, INC or INSCOM. Then she was a part of Project Grill Flame. I don't know if you're familiar with that project, but that was the precursor for all the other ones. They went Grill Flame, Sunstreak, Sinner Lane, Gondola's Wish, Star Flame, which is still classified, but there's two projects with that name. One's an advanced weaponry system out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and the other one was a project inside of the Stargate Project focusing on telepathic hypnosis and ways to weaponize this on the masses. And then it branched out to like SRI Tech and PSI Tech, which are still active today. They just privatized it. They didn't stop it.
wow. So tell us about the other half of the family.
So my father tried to go AWOL in 1991 and take me out of the country, and that's how he lost custody of me. What's weird about that situation is both of my grandfathers were there, and I remember this memory. He was trying to fly out of RDU, Raleigh-Durham Airport here in North Carolina. I'm not sure what country he was trying to go to, and I do not know the third person that was with him, because in the report it says it was him, a woman, and then myself. But my grandfather, the one I told you who was a part of Operation Jedi Warrior, he worked for the Pentagon after that. Then he spent some time at Leavenworth Penitentiary, where when I called the records office in St. Louis, they had no records of it. They said he was either under an alias or it was classified. I have the prison number. I have photos. I have a lot of stuff that I inherited. It's just trying to figure out what he was doing there. After that incident, with him there, he moved to Mexico, and he had a house in Guadalajara and he had a house in Jalapa. So I do know what he was doing there. I just know that I'll get in trouble. But let's just say that the U.S. military sends retired operatives to countries to infiltrate groups to take over their distribution. That's the only way I'm legally allowed to say it. And I have that in black and white ink.
We're sorting through some audio issues.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you. We're just sorting through some audio issues. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Dave, are you there? Maybe they cut out. I'm not sure.
Dave's having a hard time because I got
Can
some
you hear
audio
me?
loops
Is
going.
my mic on?
Bear
Yeah, I
with
can
us
hear you,
with the
Dave.
technical difficulties.
Yeah, you can talk.
I'm going to wait
have
to
to
continue
jump.
till he gets reconnected, though.
Yeah, I would just wait a second. You guys bear with us. If he doesn't, then just keep going on. They'll figure it out for a second. Sorry, I talk, but I'm letting the dog in, guys.
Oh, you're good. Oh, he's back.
Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear? Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh shoot, I'm having some audio issues. Um,
Technical difficulties. It's bound to happen.
technical difficulties right now. I'm like getting uh double talk. Just let me figure this out for 1 second. I'm sorry.
Take your time. You saw how hard it was for me to join the other space. But while he's figuring that out, instead of going like too much into detail, there's a strategic attack against survivors and whistleblowers on this app and anybody that shows us support. There are paid operatives on this app. There are media companies that are unleashing havoc just for monetary value and control. I don't have a lot of faith in the journalists anymore, if we're going to be real. And I'm lucky and blessed enough to live in a one-party state, so all my conversations I've recorded thus far. The biggest issue I've had was Seth Hart from Rolling Stone magazine. He tried to extort me for the names of the men in my father's unit, and I declined, and he threatened to interview my abuser if I didn't give those names up, which I won't. I would give it up in a court setting, or if there was like an agency affiliated person that was really trying to care about the survivors. I'm not going to get my justice at other survivors' expense, though. And that's kind of the reason why I haven't really gone much further on this app, because I have been offered money. I've been offered deals. I've had people offer me to sign an NDA. I won't, just because I feel like that I'm not going to do self-preservation at other people's expense. And I know other survivors that have taken the deal, and I'm not mad at them. I'm just a little disappointed because I feel like abusers have so much support and survivors were kind of isolated and pitted against each other. And so, like, I feel like if even if we don't agree with each other or even believe our stories, if we could stand in solidarity and at least advocate for other survivors, that we could probably push back against this orchestrated, in my opinion, event that's happening. I feel like they are using these fake accounts to target survivors to get us to advocate for the digital ID. They're weaponizing it against us, not intentionally, because none of us would want to give up our ID, but we're tired of the troll accounts. We're tired of being doxxed. We're tired of our children being extorted and shared. Like, I really feel like there's this is a military operation. If it's not military,
I'm afraid the second I start talking,
it's
just gonna
darker.
ruin it.
I'm just gonna wait for him to get back. I was just trying to fill space.
Fuck. All right. Hello, test.
We hear you
Fuck,
perfect.
I still hear. I can't hear shit.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but the second I talk, it just like explodes. I'm gonna try and jump off this web browser and go off my phone.
I'll just fill some space while you're doing that. One thing you'll notice about a lot of survivors is a lot of us have correlations in our story, even though we've never met, whether it be people or places or locations. That's one of the reasons why I met Meghan Walsh, is because she is currently fighting in the county that I fought when I was 19 years old, over custody of my son, because my adopted mother, who tried to murder me, decided she wanted custody of my son, and the state of Florida decided to entertain her, even though she lost her rights away to me for attempting to murder me. So that was 2005. I did win that case. My father was murdered during that case, and the only reason I won is because he had spoke to them before he was killed. And at the court hearing, I had to hear his voice after he was already deceased. And I had multiple caseworkers fired over that. But this county has a history of corruption. It's still corrupted today, and it's really insidious. The levels that criminals will go to protect themselves at children's and parents' expense. I didn't know if Megan wanted to jump in a little bit or not, or if you wanted to wait.
Yeah, I mean, I second everything that you've said so far, and I think that especially, I mean, I think anyone that's followed me, I first of all thank you for following me and thank you for finding me over on this new account. For those that aren't familiar, I lost mine at about 60,000 followers overnight, being accused of being a spam bot account. Ironically, the satire and all this. But yeah, I'm glad that we're talking tonight. Angela, I wanted you to get your information out and be able to tell your story like Dave said in the beginning, and then of course I can add and we can talk about it, afterwards, and the correlations. That's kind of what Dave and I had spoken about. But yeah, I mean, we need to be talking about these things. For overall, we need to be taking things to county levels. There's a lot of different topics here and a wide range that we could cover or keep it, central. But to be talking about military involvement, adoption and the system, how that works hand in hand, as well as, obviously in correlation, we're on Dave's page tonight with, everything going on with the Epstein stuff. And just finding those deeper connections. I think for years we've been repeating the same scripts and the same people. And it's great that they're being talked about now. We have to see what happens with all of that. But in the same respect, we can still be talking about what those deeper things are that really do run our country. Dave and I were talking earlier regarding the placeholders within Congress and these positions within politics, when really our country is run by the DOD, the DOJ, FBI, CIA, and whatnot. And for me, that's what I I grew up in behind the scenes, and what I talk a lot about, we can get to later. But it's very important for us to understand in a certain respect and spectrum the overall pictures. But it is time, I feel, to be getting down to what can we actually be doing, regardless of the government, regardless of a system. And really taking, the power back to the people. It's become so unfortunately cliche these days. And after all these years and everyone trying so hard, I mean, everyone here is here because they care and they've taken time and they're on this platform, and we do want change. And it's like, we know the power's in our hands, but how can we do that? And I've come out with my information, and obviously that's why I'm on tonight, and maybe Dave and I'll do another space specifically breaking down, maybe we'll get into it tonight, but breaking down those connections to Epstein, or the network that is within our country that extends globally, but in a very fundamental level. I think obviously when we're first hearing things, we get emotional and things are jarring, and the nature of child trafficking or the issues that we're dealing with today. Aside from even that, they are emotionally charged, they're traumatizing in many ways, and so on and so forth. And I think that we're all ready to kind of see, I hope, guys, I hope that we're in a space where we want to take the power and realize, how can we get simple, and how can we get down to our county and our state and really be effective within our circles, which, we have 50 states, right? We all connect and we all make one nation. So if we're doing our part, and it sounds too simple and, all granola, but if we understand these systems, if we understand what we can do to circumvent, even if they exist, even if they're making efforts to take our children and do all that there's still things that we can do. And that's, really my focus. Not to skip ahead, but just to kind of give an overview. And that's my focus, because we can talk all day, but we need to identify issues. We need to research. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. Each of us come together and we can ask questions and we can investigate and we can have discussions. And, I think that that's probably for me the biggest, and most wonderful thing out of a horrific situation that is Epstein, and has become a distraction to, in many ways, not unimportant, but a distraction to what we need to do and what we can do in our country, to protect our children, to handle healthcare, to address these issues, in terms of, I hate to see the cliche, but, America first. So, um, Dave, how's it going on your end?
I think I'm good now. Can you hear me?
I
I
hear you
can.
perfectly.
Okay, cool. I'm not getting the kickback, so perfect.
Great.
All right. Sorry about that. That was an awesome save, ladies, as usual. Um,
Thanks, Dave.
yeah,
Back to Angela, though. She was doing a great job.
I missed a huge chunk of that. I apologize.
Most of it was just filler context. I stopped the story. I was just trying to like bridge it together about like
Yeah.
how survivor stories interconnect, and just like stuff like that.
So yeah, you were the last part I had unfortunately got was we were just talking about your grandmother's psychic ability, and then you're about to get on to the other part of your family, and then it kind of went haywire for me.
So, the biggest issue that I have though is that my grandmother, she was aware of all this stuff. So was my grandfather. And I sent you a photo today of me at age
Oh yeah,
5.
guys. If you want to see visuals, there is photos Angela has that she gave us. That if you go on to the Isaac's Army page, there's also like a live stream going on simultaneously, so you can see some of the visuals as we're speaking. So it's not to cut you off, Angela.
Oh no, you're fine. So in that photo, I was 5 years old. It was taken in 1991 outside of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base by my grandmother Ann, who I was telling you about, who was a psychic remote viewer for the CIA and the DIA. And you can clearly see the spirits, the entities in that photo behind. Well, I'm not going to tell you where they are because that's subjective. Just go look for yourself. But what's most concerning is on the top of the couch on the left-hand corner. You have to turn your head to the left sideways to be able to see what I'm seeing. And the candy cane propped up on its forehead and the blood gushing out of the eyes. As a 5-year-old, I thought that was a severed child's head. I don't know if it's real. Don't know if it's a mask. I don't know. I just know what I saw and what I was led to believe. If you look directly underneath that head, you'll see another spirit. To the right of me, you'll see a full-blown apparition of a man. To the right of him, you'll see a woman in front of the blackout curtain with glasses, long blonde hair. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But the problem that I had is, I had family that hold government contracts that had literal clearances that could have validated my experiences so that I didn't have to live in a state of fear. And for them to not do that, and for me to only find out a couple of years ago on a TikTok live of all places, because I was in another live, of course, the same spiel. People don't believe me. Oh, your dad's not a Green Beret. You're lying, blah, blah, blah. And so I'd given them my family's information, name by name by name, and they were combing through archives and trying to debunk me. They got to my grandma's name. They're like, why is she popping up on CIA.gov? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to call her. And so I called her, and all she was concerned about was that you could Google her name and find these NDAs. And I'm like, did you know? Did my dad know? And then that's when she got really weird. She literally hung up the phone on me and she sold her house. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that's shady. That's extremely shady. And I can understand not saying certain things because of like national security and collateral damage. That's the reason why I don't name names regarding Fort Bragg. It's not because I don't have them. It's because like myself, I don't want the children and the families of these soldiers to be affected because I didn't ask for any of this. I inherited it. And it's really difficult to be kind of slapped with that and not have any type of advocacy or any law enforcement that's really going to do anything about it. It's kind of up to survivors to jump through all these bureaucratic red hoops and red tapes just to create and establish a paper trail to even get there. And I don't hold much faith that I'm going to get justice anymore. If we're going to be real, I pivoted
I have a
to.
question about
Oh, go ahead.
so
I
like
have to second that, Angela. Sorry.
yeah, I mean like early on, like what kind of abuse like was going on? Was it like ritualistic abuse? Was it like
It
a
was.
family member? Was it just like can you maybe want to
So it
share a little
started
bit
off
about
with
that?
my adopted mother. She would beat me. She'd kick me in the stomach, throw me around the house, spit in my face, drag me by my hair, down the hallway. And then she started taking me to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for what I assumed to be therapy sessions. That's what I was under the impression that they were. Um, but it just got progressively weird. Then other children were introduced, and we were doing puzzles and we were doing testing, and I was losing track of time. I was under heavy drugs. Like we're talking like 7 to 8 pills at a time. Sometimes I was being injected, and I do have my journals from this time period. The problem is uh, the stuff that I'm describing either is a child's. It's hard to comprehend if this is reality or if this is from a child's perspective. You know what I mean? Because the things I'm describing there are literally like demonic, um, spiritual stuff. They were more concerned with my dreams and precog abilities. And I know that a lot of people don't believe in this stuff. That's fine and dandy. Um, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just asking you to do your due diligence and research, specifically Wright Laboratories at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's my primary objective. There's an underground facility underneath Wright-Pat that connects up to Wright State University, then connects up to Ohio State University and into the natural cave systems that were utilized by the Adinas, which is not their name. That's just what they call them. But these tunnel systems are expansive, and it's not just being used by the military. They're also using that for human trafficking, which 2 years ago, they had a huge bust up in Ohio where they had over like 160 different people were arrested, including doctors, military personnel, teachers, a part of this ring.
And
But
as a reminder, Ohio is Les Wexner, who is the backer of Epstein, just for side note for later.
And then my adopted mom's family are the Griffiths. They're extremely wealthy. They are not good people. And I did send you a screenshot of my uncle, where I'm describing the abuse that had happened, and he did a laughing emoji about me being stabbed in the chest and stuff. I do have the full message. I just shared that particular part because the rest of it's kind of it's hard to talk about. Right, Pat is a touchy subject for me. I can talk about Fort Bragg all day long. I can talk about my birth mom. I get really choked up at Right, Pat, because I have more questions than answers. I know what I remember, but I have a lot of time gaps that aren't there. One of the specific tests that I remember, and I didn't know the name until George Knapp told me what it was called. It's damn it, I got to mute for 2 seconds because of train. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I mean, yeah, this is all insane stuff you had to go through as a child, and then to be able to remember it the rest of your life has got to be brutal.
The only thing that I have that's going for me is that my dad was a Green Beret and he wanted me to journal because he was fighting for custody this whole time. He just kept losing because my adopted mom had a lot of money. But he had me start keeping a separate journal because I was noticing when I was going to the doctor, I was losing track of time and I'd either wake up in my mom's car or I'd wake up at home in my bed with no recollection of what had happened. So I started taking notes of everything that I remembered to kind of create a pattern. And so
Do you
that's
think this
ultimately what helped.
all? Do you think this stems from the psychic abilities your grandmother has that they're maybe trying to provoke in you, as
I
we
do.
saw in the Epstein files that they were actually talking about stuff like that?
Because I'm second generation. This stuff happened to my birth mother before it happened to me, and I inherited her evidence as well. And my birth mother's name was Kelly Williford. Like I said, she was murdered on my birthday in 2018. And I was refused an autopsy because I had to legally prove I was her daughter, um, which is kind of impossible when your sealed adoption file is missing from vital records, which is a federal offense. So I had to have my mom buried instead of cremated so that way I could have her exhumed. To prove that she was electrocuted from the inside out at UNC Chapel Hill, which plays a big part in my story for other reasons. But if you look at UNC Chapel Hill and some of the military contracts that they have out of Fort Bragg, it kind of paints a bigger picture. Plus their ties to COVID. And well, what's the right word for those? Nanotech? They have a lot of odd operations coming out of this facility. But my birth mother, she dealt with this stuff all before I did. The reason why I didn't even know the name of the man who kidnapped me as a baby. His name was Rayvon Barefoot Sr. Um, I know that he was the leader of the KKK out in Harnett County, North Carolina, and he was a part of a drug cartel. I know that he was murdered before I found my family. I don't know the history of how he died or any of that stuff, but my
Is
biggest
that
question,
military connected also, or?
I don't know. So I don't know that chapter. So the adoption agency that I was supposedly adopted out of Lillington, North Carolina does not exist. And the only proof that I have of the paperwork is in Lillington, North Carolina at the courthouse. Before they sent my sealed adoption file over, there's like a photocopy version, like the old like film. And so they had emailed me the confirmation, like the thing that they had sent it to Raleigh. So I at least have that proof that there was records. But I'm not the only person that this happened to out of the county that I live in. There's 4 others that I found so far. So God knows how many there really are out of that county. And that county is still corrupt today. There's a lot of stuff that bases out of there.
So
It's also where they put my 5-day-old newborn in foster care.
That's heartbreaking. See, that's the stuff that enrages me because if I would have gone public sooner, if I would have gone public when my kids were a child, there's no doubt in my mind my kids have been taken. And that's one of the sucky parts about it. So like when you go public and you have children, they'll try and paint you as crazy, as manic, as delusional. I mean, all the smear campaigns and the character assassinations that comes after the initial abuse, I think is worse than the initial abuse itself. I mean, because you can heal broken bones. You can go to therapy for trauma. Speaking about it helps heal in a way. But when you have to deal with constant harassment, gang stalking, um, organized conspiracy, well, honestly, it's civil conspiracy because you have people on this app that literally have nothing better to do than target people and already hurt people. And then you have people like Megan who literally just wanted answers about her brother, her family, questions, being punished for going public about inconsistencies that she had noticed. And they tried to do that with me. The only reason it did not happen was because of my father. In his last moments of his life, he saved me. And so I disappeared. I cut off my whole family. The only family member that I had in touch was my birth mother, and I was content. I was not going to dig. I didn't have a reason to dig because I was finally happy. And so when they killed my mother, that kind of motivated me like, well, fine, if this is going to be the way it goes, then I'm just going to burn the bridge down. My intentions were not pure when I started this. I wanted revenge. I wanted them to feel the way that I felt. And honestly, coming on this app and hosting survivor spaces, meeting other survivors, seeing that I wasn't alone, kind of shifted that perspective slowly over an extended period of time. it was a little rocky there for a minute. We tried to create a survivor community just for survivors and whistleblowers to speak, but we were infiltrated. A lot of us were attacked after that. Megan, especially, and I know about it because they approached me trying to get me to target her as well. And when I did not, they started attacking me. I have evidence that they literally, a woman gave her a job, let her move in with her house, and the whole time was getting paid and in contact with her father, keeping tabs on Megan, to the man that was abusing her. And I think that's absolutely disgusted. You know, when you're in a community like this, to go to that extent to target somebody that's just fighting for their children. I can't imagine. I can't imagine that.
And also up with doing events with Wano Salmon and all of that crew she was doing also. But anyways, moving on from that. Thank you, Angela.
I mean, I just want to put the record straight. Like, I've not always made the right decisions in my reactions to the online abuse. I thought if I could chin check them, that I could bully them into submission so that maybe they would leave other survivors alone. That didn't work. I mean, it worked for a little bit, but they always pivot. They always recruit other groups. They get hackers. They try everything and anything they can to get under your skin, to break you down strategically over an extended period of time. Because that's really the only way that you can win, is to get into a survivor's head, make them doubt themselves, and make them off themselves, because we're not going to take a knee to you. It's not going to happen. But nobody really cares either. That's the hardest part. You tell them about trafficking, you tell them about where these places are happening, who's all involved, and they take it as skepticism. They take it as clout until you hear it. And I'm sorry to sound sexist, until you hear it from a man, same verbal diarrhea that I've been saying for years. Then it's, oh, this is new. And I'm like a little disheartened by that, because I feel like we could have made a lot more progress, say 3 or 4 years ago, had we taken advantage of the fact that the operatives and the trolls didn't have as much organization as they do now. If we could strategically get enough people or survivors or whistleblowers in the same space, comparing our evidence, creating a digital timeline of locations and common denominators, I firmly believe we already have all the answers that we need. The problem is how do you do that without causing, having the disruptors come in, the paid operatives, the basement dwellers that try to bot your spaces? Like, the abuse is calculated. I started diving into this stuff after meeting Chupacabra and Panda, and I told you, in the UFO community, because the other community was attacking me. So I started going to the Discords, I started going to spaces. I wanted to know why all of this was happening, and I wanted to get a bigger picture of who all was involved. They were trying to tell me that by going to Tupa and Panda spaces, nobody was ever going to listen to my story, that it was basically characters, suicide, and that, I might as well just leave the app. And I decided that I'm not just going to jump in and be, I'm not going to just jump to you're guilty by association because somebody on the internet says you're not a good person. I judge by character. They never attacked me. They never pressured me to tell my story. They allowed me to figure it out as I go. And I mean, I've made mistakes. I've pissed people off on here. I've gone head on with cults because I wish this app was safe. I really do. But there are groups on here like the Periscope group, the Peridrama group, that literally hold spaces of like 200 people talking about raping infants to death. That is how my account got banned, because I took a screen recording after I'd been arguing with them, and posted it on my page. And my account was nuked, not theirs. Their account's still up today. But me bringing awareness to that.
Didn't even know about this. Do you want to touch on it for a second?
Sure. There's quite a few individuals. They said they were going to throw acid on my face, skin me alive, and murder me in front of my children. I have those screen recordings too. There's a lady on here called Meme Queen, who I do not like. I'm sorry. I think she's paid to be here. But even though I don't like her, they were attacking her, saying that they were going to rape her son to death. So nobody else was saying anything. So I grabbed a mic and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with all you people? With all due respect, I'm not trying to cuss, but when you are sitting in a space and you hear that type of abuse and you don't say something, you are facilitating that abuse. You are being complicit. To me, that makes you a bigger part of the problem, because you are self-aware. You have the ability to say something and you're choosing not to.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know I had done a space where some things got exposed where you can use hashtags to find really fucked up shit here on X, and it brings you to even more fucked up shit when you go to these hidden posts that that says like spam or whatever. Then you can open that. So
I was
yeah,
in that space with you. I actually got targeted because of that space because they said I clicked the link. And I clearly said in your space that I did not click the link. But because I was in the space with you too, I was guilty by association. And they
yeah,
actually are still harassing me about that. They held a space about it today, which I
that's
don't care.
unbelievable.
It is. I'm like, if you could only exert that amount of energy into debunking me, could you imagine how much you would help me?
Yeah, yeah, we could actually get some things accomplished. Uh,
I
so
think where we cut off, we were talking about Wright Patterson Air Force Base and the testing when all that stuff happened.
yes,
So the one test that I specifically remember, I called the helmet test. I didn't know the term of it until George Knapp told me it's called the helmet of God. And in this test, what we originally did was there'd be one kid on opposite ends of the table. You'd have to put your hands on your knees, and they'd have this helmet on your head with like these little sticker things that pop up, that I guess monitor your brain waves, maybe. And so you'd have each kid on the opposite end of the table, and there'd be a ball in the center. And using that helmet in your mind, you'd have to push the ball to the other side of the table. And whoever would win would progress to the next set of tests. And a lot of them were simple. A lot of them, it didn't start off bad. A lot of them was just like puzzles, different like boxes that you had to open. A lot of like, they didn't get dark until like 97. And I have time gaps. So what I'm going off of is my stuff in my journal, things that I had written down. And so like I don't remember it at all. I just know what I had
what
written down.
age were you when that was going on?
So 97 to 99. So like 7 to 11.
Okay, yeah, so old enough to be aware of everything going on.
Oh, yes. I started running away at age 5, so that's how far back my police reports go. And in the reports, it'll state that I was barefoot in August, like running, and I got 3 miles away, which is pretty far for a 5-year-old. I was going to my grandma's house because I knew if I could get there, she'd get my daddy. And if they got my daddy, they were all dead. So that was my objective. As long as I could get to my father, then everything was going to be fine. But I went those 3 years without having any contact with my father at all. And I'm gonna say it, but I don't normally. I have a sister. I never mention her. I never speak on her. I don't. Man, I turn into a villain really fast if people attacked my sister like they attacked me. They already take it too far with my children. I've had my kids posted on here. They photoshopped them into their underwear and posted them in front of gallows to incite race violence upon me and my children. They've posted my old address, my husband's information, my information. They've literally tried to get people to murder me. And this is a daily occurrence. And I wish I was exaggerating. But unfortunately, there are really sick people on
Do you
here.
think this all stems because of the military connections?
I do, because, well, my father worked with Michael Flynn.
He worked with Flynn directly.
Correct.
How can you explain that a little bit?
I can send you documents, but whenever I talk about that chapter is when I'm attacked really heavy.
Okay, so
Really heavy.
we don't got to touch on that
Yeah.
tonight.
That's actually
I
how me
do.
and Megan met a little bit, was through Sun Tzu.
Yeah, and I do, I'm not going to touch on that either because it's vicious and it's just absolutely horrible. Um, that's for another time, but I
Well, I
do
mean,
want
yeah,
to,
that whole
what I'm,
crew, like when we exposed that pedophile network, they immediately opened a space to try and discredit. It was one of the most jaw-dropping things I saw ever, like witnessed. I'm like, we can't just like agree on this one topic to fucking get the news out to people. Like this is
yeah,
crazy.
I'll just say
they,
what pissed
they
him off
won't,
about me. I didn't accuse him of human trafficking. The way I worded it and the way I still word it is, I don't understand how you can be the face of exposing human trafficking when you were the commander of this base when this human trafficking ring happened under your feet. And I think that's a valid question, and I think it deserves being answered. And instead of me being
yeah,
attacked, he won't.
yeah, that's what I wanted to bring up. I mean, what people need to see the overall here is with human trafficking. I mean, the military industrial complex is definitely heavy in this, and people are ignoring, military bases. When children are brought through military bases, their records are not kept, their names can be changed, they can disappear. And it definitely happens through military bases. We're not saying all of it does, but there is a portion that is not being talked about, that many people who, like Angela just said, say that they know what's going on and they're the face of it and they're taking this authority, when they're not being, they're, if anything, they're not coming forward about what they know. And then it further becomes, are they gatekeeping and a new rebranded front of the same type of operations becomes a question that does need to be looked at and talked about. And it's not anything personal, it's logistics in a humanitarian crisis called child trafficking that we are dealing with globally. And that if we are Americans and patriots and whatever we're calling ourselves these days, because again, this is not political, then we need to be talking about how is that happening in America. What do we think? We know what trafficking in India and across the border and all these different countries and internationally looks like, but what does that look like in the land of influencers and the military industrial complex and Hollywood and all of that America is? And it's not starving children on the side of the road. It is our domestic system. It is CPS. It is family court. And that's how we get into that. But we have to understand the military ties behind it. We have to understand those things and the background, the psychological warfare and the operations that initiated all of this and what that end goal is, because now we do have a system that is breaking our children. When you take children from their place of origin, that is immediate MK Ultra type trauma. We're wondering why children are doing the things they're doing these days and shooting each other and out in the streets. But we don't want to talk about and look at the history of how we got here, what that actually is doing, and what the goal is by those that we now realize at this point in time are not on our side and maybe not for our best interest. And, people are coming forward screaming. And like Angela has been saying very well tonight on the space, I think, we're not only, not being listened to or heard, we're being attacked. And there's a lot of things behind the scenes, even off of this platform, that is happening in real life to survivors, or victims that are surviving, or whatever we want to call it. But this needs to be addressed, and we're begging for support. We're begging to come together because these are the people that do have the information. They've been courageous enough. They've shown up, and everyone says we need to make it make sense, right? We can't have the spirit of hypocrisy going on. If we say we care about the children, we need to talk about the children. If we say we care about, fellow Americans, we need to talk about that and look at it and what are the real ways. So, Angela, what you're talking about, I mean, I can on the different side, on the other side, non-military, but in what I grew up in, whatever we want to call it, at age 8, they start taking you to therapy to go to the private, school and everything that's basically MK Ultra. And for the elite, you have the testing and everything that you're talking about. You have the different groups or the tutoring, you have the nannies, have the covert abuse behind closed doors that, when your parents are pillars of the community, whether it's on a national level or a community level, local level, those are things that we have to look at that then go into why. So we're talking about a lot of different angles, right? How did we get the system? How did we get here? What is the history? A lot of people want to look at different cases, especially with the Epstein stuff coming up. A lot of historical cases, especially dealing with children, are coming up. And people are looking and digging and doing a great job questioning. We need to keep questioning and having these conversations, which, like Angela said, we need to find a good way and a safe way to facilitate that between survivors or between people that care about that and actually want to do something, because we don't need everybody. I mean, I've said this from the beginning. I'm not here for friends. I'm not here for you to like me. You don't need to believe me. That's okay. But I'm here to deliver information, ask questions, And, I did grow up in this. I was an advocate against the system before my children were ever taken. I have pictures of us at bridge walks and local events focusing on our local community like I was already doing. So, I just want to make a few commentaries, onto what Angela was talking about, that do have correlation to, my lane in this, I guess.
And I think that's the hardest part, dude, because I understand what it's like from the child's perspective growing up and wanting there to be somebody to come and save you or help you. And I always thought that the help was coming. That was the hardest part for me, I think, to process is that if I wanted to do anything, it would have to come from me. And that's another reason why I speak is because even if I don't get justice, as long as we can create a paper trail and establish the documentation, so the next round of survivors that are going to come forward will at least have a fighting chance. And one thing I'd like to encourage the community is it's okay if you have questions. It's okay if you don't believe us, but at least instead of going into attack mode, research it first. Why is there so many people that don't even know my full story? Because I've never actually been able to get it all out in one chapter or one space because there's so many levels. Because there's my story, but my story ties into my father's, and my father's ties into my grandfather's ties into my grandma. And that's just adopted side. That's not even touching my biological mom's side, the Gardners. Ava Gardner is my biological great aunt through my mom's side of the family. Like there's a lot of correlations and different things that doesn't make sense. And I'd like to know, is it coincidence? Does it all tie together? Is this a part of a conspiracy? You know what I mean? I just want clarity. I want clarification so that I can move forward, so that I can I've never been able to live. I've been stuck in a state of hypervigilance, scared to, step out of line because, they're going to take my kids or they're going to do this or, I'm going to meet my parents' fate. So I started, making contingency plans, things that I inherited, names, everything, putting it in a safe space with multiple individuals spread out just so that nobody was compromised or expendable, just in case I lose my fight. At least that way I'd have the last laugh. And I'm only keeping that for a rainy day. I've had other podcasters on here that have been threatened with murder for airing my episode. The one episode that we were talking about was not even my story. It was just my evidence on the psychological warfare tactics that are being utilized in spaces and the type of groups and media companies that are behind it. And I thought it was important. I seriously believe this is why so many people are being attacked, is because there are paid operatives on this app that are profiting off of triggering emotional responses out of people that are fighting for disclosure in one way or another, because they all tie together. Whether people want to believe it, UFO, human trafficking, government corruption, all of it aligns together. Are you still there?
Is Dave there? Did we lose him?
I don't hear him. If
I'm
you
not
can
sure
hear
where
us,
Dave
we can't
went.
hear you.
But I'm still here. So you guys can keep going. Can you hear me
Bear with
okay?
us for a second. We are having some technical difficulties again.
Can you guys hear me okay?
I guess we could fill the space while he's fixing all that. I think the biggest issue that I'm having now is that I thought all this stuff would be solved. I wanted to have all this stuff solved before my children are 18, just because I know that whatever I don't fight, whatever I don't face, my children are going to inherit. And I wanted to at least provide them with the tools to be able to navigate it, especially when it comes to talking about special. Are you there? Is it working now?
Yeah, how's that going? I just saw him come on. I just didn't want to interrupt.
I don't hear him though. Do you hear him?
No, I don't.
I appreciate your guys' patience though with us tonight while we're navigating this. I don't really want to go too far in the story when he's not present because then he'll miss it. I guess in the
Would
meantime,
you,
it's like, oh, go ahead.
can you hear me?
I
Sorry.
hear
I
you
don't
perfect.
Okay. Sorry about that. I think I cut out too.
I only heard you say that one sentence. I didn't hear anything else if you said anything.
Oh, well, I did also want to just say for a second, again, I think that you're articulating well, and I hope people are understanding, one of the points that we're talking about tonight about, people on the app and survivors trying to get things out and information. I didn't, I wasn't prepared to kind of talk about that topic tonight or think about it, but while it's coming up, I think, again, we've heard over and over, it's gotten like reamed out, if you will, for lack of a better term, but this research, look for yourself, research. But, really, and I'm hoping that that's kind of what we can talk about eventually, whether it's tonight or another night on this space, but really breaking down, the system. I wanted you to be able to get your story out and do that. I'm so glad that Dave, supported that and took the time to do this tonight. But again, it is about surviving the system, and you are somebody. It's a point that I've really emphasized throughout all of this, with my children going through and whatnot, and that is the perspective of the children. We're all adults, and we, think we have solutions and we know things, but really within our system, whether it's through, military ties or through, just, I mean, this is something that's affecting everyday people, at this point. It's not one demographic or the other. And for us to really understand what's going on, we have to listen to people that you can't know what you haven't experienced fully. If you haven't experienced something, you can't fully know what that is. And we have enough children, everyone here is like, oh, we can't have state raised children. We can't have children raised by the system. We already have that. It's what's happening every day. And no one is thinking about the perspective of the children. We have a completely inverted system at this point where we're taking children from their homes and their safe space, and we're not talking about real cases and issues of abuse and neglect. I think everyone here would agree that if you are truly starving or beating or harming a child, that you belong behind bars if you're guilty, but you also deserve due process and whatnot. That's a whole other night in itself. The fact that no families within the system that's taking our children and trafficking for profit under Title IV funding, is they have less rights than criminals do, than murderers have, to their own children. But we can talk about that a different night. For those that are interested, please let Dave know. But
Can you
we
guys hear
also
me?
have,
My bad.
yeah, hey
Yes.
Dave.
All right, sorry about that. Shit, we're having some issues tonight. Um, I don't think I missed too much. I could actually hear what you guys were saying. You guys were filling the air nice as always, hitting some great points there that we wanted to hit on later. And yeah, actually probably have a whole nother space on. Um, but Angela, where were we when we cut out there?
We were talking about the trauma of that Wright Pat. So Wright Patterson Air Force Base, I was under a lot of drugs. Um, and my adopted mom still lives there. She's still alive today. She still works for the government. I've never stepped foot back in that state since my father's funeral in '07. So that is my goal this summer. And I'm terrified of it because my adopted mother and my stepmother both live in that state. I have a lot of family members that are good though, that are out there, but those are like the two big demons, like in my story that I'm terrified of facing because like when I think of them, I like revert back to a child. And I know I'm strong online. I know that I confront a lot of obstacles, but that's a mask I wear. I learned to do that to survive. That's the only reason I'm standing. If I'm going to be real. And a lot of people don't understand that when it comes to like complex PTSD or disassociating or what comes or why that happens. So like as a child, I would check the fuck out. I called it autopilot mode. I didn't understand exactly what it meant until I was older, but that's how I survived. Is I would literally just like check out into my mind. I would drift off. I would go to another place, which now I know is a real place. But back then I didn't understand. I just thought it was my imagination. I didn't really have a lot of connection with people as a child. I connected with spirits. I dealt with entities. I dealt with a lot of woo-woo stuff. And I think people were scared of me for it. If we're going to be honest, I think that I don't think, I know that they were studying me. They were studying how to control it, how to control me. That's the reason why they kept amping the dosage. There is no excuse for a 5-year-old, let alone a 7-year-old, to be on 7 different medications at a time. The only good thing that I have is I'm a TRICARE recipient. My dad was a Green Beret, so all of my medical records were were done through the U.S. Army and at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base because that was the local hospital where I was staying at. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base ties to a lot of stuff, not just UAP and PSI research, but giants, stargates. There's a lot of stuff. And people, when I talk about giants, they usually laugh at me. And I'm like, I used to laugh at my grandpa. I used to laugh at my dad. I thought they were crazy. Out of all the things to talk about, what do you mean giants are real? But according to him, in 2002, they fought one. They caught it. And before that, in 2001, they found a whole bunch of them in an underground city in Iraq. And I've been talking about this stuff since MySpace days. My digital footprint is that long. Another thing that I would like to touch on is I'm being scrubbed off the internet. That is frustrating for me. So, like when you Google me, and I'm okay with you doing it, I use my maiden name for a reason. It doesn't show who my parents are. And like when you look up my adopted family, my biological family, and my step family, which I posted that on my TikTok in a video, I'm not listed there. It says they're all related to each other and the common denominator is through me, but I have now erased. And I used to be there. I do have evidence that I was on there at one point in time when my birth mother was alive, but after she was killed, and I don't know how that happens. I'm not a techie person. That's the whole reason why I struggle today with sending you stuff. That's why I sent it to you because I didn't even know how to make a thumbnail, dude. Like, I'm not techie at all. If I could learn that, it'd be in game.
Well, neither am I. Thank God for Sean and John, we wouldn't be able to pull half this shit off.
I've kind of pivoted from getting justice. I want justice. I'd like to see arrests. I'd like to see change, laws, done. But I've kind of pivoted from that just because I don't think it's realistic for me. Not that I don't deserve it, because I do. I just don't think that society is ready for that type of exposure yet. I think we're getting there though, a little bit slower, but you know how that cognitive dissonance kicks in when you start to realize your entire life's a lie and all this stuff is pitted against you, and MK Ultra is real and it's happening on a mass scale. And I firmly believe that apps like this are a social experiment to not just control your emotions, but to control the information that are coming out of you. I think that a lot of the major space hosts that are on, well, I don't think it, I know it, I've been in their discords, are paying people to target you, that they are designing who's allowed to have a microphone in the spaces, who they're going to attack for the week, and what content is allowed to be shared. And I thought originally they all work together, but it's like subgroups that work adjacently to each other. So if there's like, I'll just use myself as an example. I'm coming into spaces, I'm talking about stuff, and I'm taking attention away from their spaces where they're getting paid to do these things. I'm now a problem. So now they need to either collect me, dismantle me, or kick me off the app. And that's the methods that they utilize. And they try to like form trauma bonds with you. So like you'll have a couple people that'll come in the room to ask you questions that act like they're genuinely interested. Then you'll have a few more that'll come in to provoke you, to provoke an emotional response, to get you triggered so that you are reactive, which is reactive abuse. We poke, 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 and then when you react, then we play victim. That's a method that they like to utilize on here. Then you'll have a couple people that'll either pop up in the space or go straight to DM, trying to trauma bond with you to create a relationship so that you can break down those walls, so that they can gather more information about you to later blackmail and extort and abuse you with. And this dynamic is extensive. And I wish I was wrong. You know what I mean? I really had a lot more faith and hope in people on here, especially the advocates that talk about human trafficking and Epstein. And if I'm going to be genuine, they do not care about survivors or the people involved until after we're dead. And Virginia Jeffrey is a prime example of that. She screamed through the world begging for people to care, and nobody cared until they took her out. And I don't care if they say that she killed herself. No, she did not. I firmly believe that. We've seen it through Hollywood time and time again of people going missing as soon as they talk about this topic. Either you're ostracized or you're ridiculed, mocked, or you have an accident, whether it's a car accident or, I mean, Their capabilities are endless. Like the technology that we have that we see today is old. When we're talking about AI and all this stuff, like they were going to other countries and stealing artifacts to reverse engineer. That's partial of what my father was involved in. He spent a lot of time in Africa, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Iraq. Of course, he did multiple tours over there. My dad deployed before 9/11 ever happened. I wasn't allowed to go to school that day, so that's kind of when my life got rocky because he got custody of me in 99. I had a few years of normalcy and then 9/11 happened. And when my dad got custody of me, he threw me into public school. So I had never had any like association with other kids, other people. Like my entire childhood, I describe it as in a bubble. And if you talk to adults, and I have people on this app that know me in real life, there's a lot of soldiers on this app in the Patriot Spaces in the Rangers room that worked with my father. And there's a few on here that worked with my grandfather. And what I'm pissed off with you, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to dox you, but what I'm pissed off with you is that you'll DM me and validate and verify everything that I've gone through, but you won't publicly say anything. And I understand about operations and I understand about not putting your life at risk, but it's frustrating to me that I have to walk it off and I'm set through these unrealistic standards on how I'm supposed to heal and expose this stuff without a guideline of what's off limits and what's on limits. And then when you start looking at the type of type of people that are following me, that's when it gets scary. Why do you have all these CIA assets and these government operatives that are not talking to me, following me? You know what I mean? Isn't that weird? If you're not going to help me, like,
Now, have you? I'm sure you have, but I mean, what's happened when you gone down the process of trying to find justice as far as reporting this to like authorities? Um, have you like what was your experience when that happened, if that happened?
so most of the time they're very interested in helping me. I was in contact with the FBI on my personal state case in 2020, and then everything got shut down. They were, and I have all my emails and voicemails from that still saved. They were willing to help me until they started looking into my illegal adoption. And I even told them, like, I I turned my cheek on that. I want answers. I want to know why what happened to me happened to me. I want to know what the objective of was and what they were trying to do. And I would be okay with keeping my mouth shut about everything except for what's happening to kids. Like that's my only thing that I'll double down on that I'm not okay with turning my cheek on. Everything else though, especially like when it Fort Bragg, that's a hard one. I don't know if I could turn my cheek on that one either. Because like Seth Hart from Rolling Stone magazine, he tried to blackmail me for the men in my father's unit. And then when I tried to confront him on here, because he tried to dox a Delta Force commander, he tried to lie and said that we like never had any contact, that we didn't talk on the phone or anything. So I shared a couple screenshots. I didn't share the full context, but I threatened him. I said, look, if you don't stop lying on me, I'm going to post the recordings because I recorded our phone calls. I live in a one-party state. I'm allowed to do it. I'm not doing it to be malicious. I'm not doing it to inflict harm on others. I'm not doing it to dox you. I'm doing it to keep myself safe because if we're going to be real, I don't know who's working with who has good, genuine intentions, who genuinely cares. It's very hard to navigate, especially when I've made emotional connections with people on this app to later find out that they the entire time were targeting me. Like that was really hard. There's a person that's currently attacking me and has been attacking Megan for a while. Her name is Gwen Hubble. She's a veteran. She used to work for a media company. I don't know what she's doing on this app, but she has a hyperfixation with targeting survivors. And this woman was my friend for over a year. She actually bought my check mark. She was trying to help me. She said she was going to help me find my biological father, get the answers that I wanted. And then when I stood up because a friend of mine that I frequent her spaces because it's a safe space, she had a miscarriage. And they were saying that she murdered her baby, that she killed it for satanic ritualistic abuse. So I popped into the space because the man that said it was a veteran. This is the same man that posted that photo of my children in front of gallows to incite violence, and the same man that threatened another friend of mine to murder her and her husband. So I popped in the space because I know this man is an E2, or he was, which is an entry-level position. And I said two words that I knew would provoke him. And I did it because I knew that I had the ability to withstand the abuse and she didn't. But I called him a bootlicker. And that was enough to get that whole group to start targeting me, because how dare I call him a bootlegger? I'm not trying to be mean, but this man was talking shit about my father, who was an EA. And with all due respect, if you are going to make fake accounts of my grandmother, who's still alive, impersonating a CIA asset, which is a federal offense, and then coming at me and then crying about words on the internet, then I don't really know what else to tell you. I don't always handle situations the best. If you were to talk to me like some of these people do online, in real life, I'd headbutt you. I'm not going to tolerate that, nor would I allow you to speak to somebody else like that in my presence. That's the way I was raised. My dad would have whooped my damn ass if I would have witnessed something like that and pulled out my phone to record it. I'd have been in more in trouble than the person that did it, because that's complacency. And you have to have integrity. And so, like, I'm learning as I go. I'm trying to walk by example and own up to my discretions, how hold myself accountable so that maybe other people will follow suit, because we don't know what we're doing. There is no instruction manual with this. We're kind of learning as we go. And my TikTok's a prime example of that. If you go back to the very first video, you'll see I couldn't even tell a sentence without bawling my eyes out. I couldn't speak. I couldn't articulate thoughts. And then when you start looking into some of the spaces earlier on here with like Chupacabra and Panda and Logan and Sign, I would get jumbled up and I'd speak in circles. I couldn't go from start to finish in a cohesive way. So the trolls and dealing with this over an extended period of time has kind of helped me with getting over some of those chapters, but it's still a struggle. I'd really just like to see people unite together, whether you believe us or not, and stand in solidarity and help us get to the answers so that maybe we can all heal. Juliette Bryant has been fighting for entirely too long to get people to listen and care. And she's not the only one. I won't say her name, but we have a Rockefeller on the app who was also kidnapped and illegally adopted into a family that has been begging for you guys to care for years, until you guys posted her address and she was almost murdered. And now she's in hiding, and I'll never tell you where she's at. She's still on here, but she's under an anonymous account because a lot of us do not feel safe to talk about certain things. We've already talked about it though. If you go back to the recordings, we've named the names, we've said it all. It's just we've pivoted from the direction on how to expose all this because we don't know. I really would like somebody with security clearance that has the ability to comb through the documents I have, that's not going to arrest me for inheriting them, to comb through and tell me what I'm allowed to talk to and what I'm not allowed to talk about. I'm not trying to hurt other soldiers because I don't demonize the military as a whole. I don't. There are factions inside of these organizations, inside of these groups that have been infiltrated from the inside out. And I think it's strategic. You know, you have certain groups like at Fort Bragg that are involved in blackmailing, not only of soldiers, but of their spouses. And if you don't fall in line and do what you're told, they ruin your career and sometimes take your life. I would recommend looking at Fort Bragg at the amount of unalivement, oh, not on TikTok, the amount of deaths surrounding this base, and how many missing persons cases there are. It's quite a bit. You'll never actually be able to look up an actual number because that's how often they hide it. I'd also looked into the child abuse, the rape, the murder cases that are happening here involving soldiers with minors. That's a big issue happening at this base. And there is a bar in Southern Pines, North Carolina, where a couple of rogue special forces veterans that are a part of this organization meet up and drug these people and traffic them. And I'm saying it like that because I know their names. I know the name of the bar. It's the only Irish bar in Southern Pines. You can do the research for yourself. But there's some dark stuff going on here. A lot of people don't even know about the Rockefeller estate on Fort Bragg property at the corner of Highway 87 and Nursery Road. You can't miss it because I crashed in the fence. That's why there's a stoplight there now. And the pole on the left side's bigger than the one on the right. But it was originally owned by Percy Rockefeller. It was frequently visited by Stalin. They were famous for their hunting parties, only they just weren't hunting animals. They were hunting people. And this is historical information that you can look up. There's photos, there's archives, there's a lot. Another issue that we're dealing with in North Carolina is that we have CIA black sites housed at private airports, not just in North Carolina, but all across America. And I specifically know about this because of Johnson County Regional Airport in Johnson County, North Carolina, which is in between Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and Camp Lejeune. That specific shell company is Aero Contractors LLC. It's AERO contractors. And they have what they call rendition flights, which are equivalent to torture taxis. They have retrofitted aircraft for human torture, and it ties directly to Guantanamo Bay, 9/11. Lula Lozano told you about it. He just didn't tell you the name of the company, and that's one of many. That's not the only one. They have them in Wilmington, Kinston, and that's just this state. I haven't even dug into other states. Fort Huachuca, there's a lot of stuff going on there, but I didn't personally go through that. That's my uncle Mark, which he's on this app. I would recommend following him and asking him, maybe having a follow up, because it's his mom that worked for the CIA. It's his dad that worked for the Pentagon. My adopted father was his brother. So if I was a liar, my adopted uncle would not be on this app trying to help me, because he felt like he failed me, and I don't blame him. I don't at all. Maybe in a way, maybe in a little bit. I'm upset that the only reason why they're talking is because I'm public, but I'm thankful that they at least chose to speak up now rather than later. And I'm also not the only victim. I had two twin stepsisters that also went through this abuse up in Ohio. I never named them their names, but I'll send it to you privately just as a contingency. Um, but if I can get to court, they would actually speak up in my behalf. And I also have individuals that are still contracting. I'm not going to say what they do, that would also speak on my behalf if I can get to court. I just will never name their names beforehand because, well, I've lost too many people and I'm not going to jeopardize that now.
Yeah, I mean, you're up against a giant machine. I mean, the military machine. I mean, endless money. Um, you know, them trying to hide dark secrets. Yeah. I mean, you're up against it. That's for sure. So, do you plan to just keep going forward with and try to get some legal action? I know earlier in the space you said you kind of gave up on that, and it's more for contingency.
Well, I
Um,
kind of stopped doing that because I got distracted with all the current legal lawsuits that I'm dealing with in real life because of targeted harassment online. And a lot of people are upset with me taking people on Twitter to court, but they wouldn't leave me alone. They're still not leaving me alone. Literally all day today, trying to provoke me to go into a space so they can publicly humiliate me because they don't believe my story. And with all due respect, you can only handle so many spaces of that before it gets really old. And I'm like, if you don't believe me, that's fine. Um, I don't really care about your approval or you caring about me, because that's something I'm told often, is it's not that they don't care about human trafficking, it's just that they don't care that it happened to me. And maybe that's because of my personality. Maybe it's because I come off abrasive or strong-willed or argumentative. I'll fight for my friends. I'll fight for my enemies too. Like, I've been in spaces and defended people that I don't like that would never do the same for me, because that's my character. That's how we're supposed to do. My dad taught me that leaders lead by example. And if you don't have somebody to look up to, then it's time for you to step up and keep walking. And eventually, maybe you'll have some support. But until then, it's better to walk alone than with a bunch of wolves that are going to stab you in the back. And I feel safer alone. And maybe that's part of the thing with comes with trauma. When you have all these other, people around you, even though you crave that connection, it comes at a cost. It's kind of a liability because you don't know if their intentions are true, if they're really trying to help you, or if they're just trying to gain information. Because if we're going to be honest, a lot of the journalists that I've talked to, and I've talked to Ryan Matta, Ross Colhart, Tucker Carlson, George Knapp, George Webb. George Webb does a lot of stuff for survivors on the back channels, though, and he doesn't even publicly announce it. But I know for a fact that man has housed people, let people use his studios to tell their stories. Like, that's a man I respect. And I don't even know everything that he covers. I just know the amount of hands-on activity he has in real life with supporters is pretty impressive to me. To go out of pocket to help people is I think he's in it for the right reasons. And I know a lot of people have their doubts, and that's fine, but I judge people on their integrity and the way that they navigate these type of stories. Um, I mean, I've been in spaces with Liz Crokin, Laura Loomer. Like we've talked about this stuff, and during like elections that year before, they were all in spaces with all of us talking about this stuff. And then I'm not trying to say anything mean, but where's that support afterwards? You know what I mean? Like it kind of like felt like you were using us for votes, and I hope that's not wrong. I really do. I don't have a problem with President Trump because I will say his administration has communicated the most out of all of them. I just feel like we've been taken over from the inside out and he has a lot of stuff to deal with. Kind of like when it comes to the Epstein files. We're only going to get partial of truth. You see, they redacted the names of the criminals, not just the survivors, but the criminals. Why would our country be protecting pedophiles? You have to think of why is all this happening? I really do think it comes to like identifying not only
Yeah, do you see
specific.
they actually
Oh,
released Juliet's name and her full name
finally,
on there.
because I found her on the original list. I've already had all that stuff, even though
Yeah.
they
Well,
just
it was
released it.
supposed to be redacted. I mean, she should sue the shit out of him, but we'll see.
I would, but I think that she's just trying to navigate. I'm just so glad that people are giving her support finally. Like I love that. I really truly love that for her, especially with like all the evidence that she did have. The way that people treated her the past couple years was absolutely disgusting. So I'm super happy to see her finally getting support and maybe some answers and clarity because a lot of y'all thought she was crazy when she's talking about seeing people's eyes shift and all this stuff, and it's in black and white ink in the files, dude. Everything she told you about underground is there. I mean, the stuff about Right Pat has come out. Stuff about Fort Bragg has come out. There's a Fort Huachuca that's been mentioned. Like a lot of the things that we've been telling you, like with the Stargates. Like I personally believe that this new Stargate project with the AI ties to the old Stargate projects, not just the remote viewing, but the Stargate portals. I think they go hand in hand. I firmly believe that our military is weaponizing not only natural abilities, but trying to facilitate and create psychic super soldier programs. The precursor in 1980 at Fort Bragg, what my grandfather was a part of. They only tell you the Hollywoodized versions of that when you watch the movie The Men in Stare at Goats. It goes way more deeper than that. And when you look into all these different terrorist attacks and accidents and stuff that have been happening, how many of these people have ties to Fort Bragg, specifically with the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg? That is where a lot of this stuff is heated out of. And I know a lot of great soldiers there, so I'm not trying to disrespect any veterans. Thank you for your service. I don't demonize you as a whole, but you have a group of individuals that are power hungry, that are desensitized, that are profiting not only on human trafficking, but on drug trafficking. That is a big issue that's happening at this base. And I firmly believe that that shell company that I told you earlier is how they are transporting not only the drugs, but the people, not from just this base, from but multiple other ones as well. Because Fort Hood, they have a history of that going on there, right, Pat? Like, there's a lot of things. And that's not even getting into the UAP stuff because I don't want to overwhelm y'all. We might have to break it up into other stuff. And then maybe I can send you my grandma's phone number and stuff. I did that with Astral. He's an account on here that hosts spaces about remote viewing. But he called her and then he didn't publicly tell him I was telling the truth to anybody in spaces. So that's the reason why I kind of stopped going to that side of the community anymore, is because it felt like the more information that I would provide, and I'm not going to name the other content creators, they would just use the information to promote their own stories and kind of just left me high and dry. And that's fine because I'm glad that they're succeeding. Um, but I just really wish that they would take other people with them. That's why I've decided that I'm not walking through that door alone. I don't care if it takes me longer. I don't care if it takes my whole life. I want it to I want it to make ripples because ripples can turn into waves.
Yeah, respect for all that. I mean, that's a lot to unpack there. You're you're a space expert. I wish I could like rip like you do. Megan, do you have anything you want to add in there that Angela just said?
Well, like I keep saying, I think she's doing a spectacular job tonight
No, it
laying it
is.
out. It is a lot of information, but I'm glad that, she's able to get this out and it's in a space where people can hear, and really allow her to, not only tell her story, but address, I think that's a big thing that people are missing about whistleblowers or survivors or whatever we want to call it. A lot of us have shown up. We're not here to just have people listen to our story and what's going on, but we're really trying to bring the points that apply to everybody from our stories, from our experiences, and to see change, to educate, for us to come together for all these variables, which is towards the direction that we should be going. So I know, I really do love also how Angela pointed. I mean, there's so much that she touched on, but I think a lot of it also is, I don't think people understand that a lot of people that have come forward, especially in the last couple of years, including myself, we're coming forward while, and Angela mentioned this, but while we're literally going through being terrorized or traumatized or through the extended abuse, or also just figuring things out along with everybody else. Maybe we have inside stuff, but I thought that I was doing my part in my family. We did children our whole lives and my whole life. And I thought that, me being a mother advocating for CPS and family court, I thought that was something that they would be proud of. John and Reve Walsh, these things. But, we start to find that maybe that isn't necessarily, what is best, but it's also what needs to come forward. So, we do keep, the group of survivors or whistleblowers across the country, across the globe, that are coming forward are some of the strongest people I've ever met in my life. They're some of the kindest people I've ever met in my life. They care about the truth. They care about, again, that ripple effect and creating change. If they can't, and a lot of us, my children are in it. So obviously I'm still fighting and I'm not going to give up. But, do I see justice and everything coming in the future? I mean, I'm never going to, what wish against that, but do I, am I wholly disheartened, at where we're at? Yes, I am. So again, I'm not saying, I'm not being radical one way or the other. I just want to have conversations about these things. I want people to be listening to what these type of people are coming for and bringing forward, including myself, and ask the questions too, or care about it. If you say you're caring about children, if you say you're caring about trafficking, if you're saying you're caring about these different issues, then ask questions about it. Be looking at, the nation's largest authority over child protection, like the National Center. We talk about, cognitive dissonance and everything. I mean, how can we be screaming, save the children, da 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 da, all this kind of stuff, and we care about it when we won't even look at our nation's main authority that is funded by all the main agencies, that it was, did set the precedent that then led to things like the Clinton Foundation, things that are already coming up, in our mainstream awareness now, and
Yeah,
that we're
the
realizing.
information that Megan has about the National Center for Missing Exploited Children is really mind blowing. The money that pours in there from some of the people would really blow your mind. Um, did you want to? Can you name a couple of them?
Yeah. Yeah, again, we can go after names and stuff, but we really need to be looking at the money, and we need to be following the networks and the rackets, and through history and pattern recognition, and really looking at that and being able to say, okay, that was the past. This is now where we are now, and assessing that, and what are the goals for the future, whether it's their goals, or our goals, which I would argue both need to be considered. That's how we play. As everyone likes to say, that's how we play chess. And we can solve things. We can come together. So that's really the National Center. We're looking. One of the first things that to touch on what you said, Dave, following the money. I think it's really interesting if a person was to take just a quick look at even their website itself, which they have. Tonight I was on looking for the board member that was from the McCain Institute, and they have since scrubbed her. She's been on a quote unquote leave of absence since the beginning of COVID. Now they've finally taken her off.
They've also been trying to scrub me too. I know Angela mentioned that. Sorry, side note, but now there's a whole new Irish singer, Meghan Walsh, that pops up as John Walsh's daughter on Google. So yeah, they're definitely doing weird things, but we don't have control over that. So back to the point, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was established in 1981, 84, excuse me, under the Reagan administration with the Adam Walsh Act, and the organization itself, what that did for the first time in American history, really solidified a organization that secured funding and legislative rights or lobbying rights, which is, of course, passing things without our voting and so on and so forth. But this is dealing specifically with our children under the guise of protection and all of that, all of the rest of it. So when we go into it, we find things that, again, I have never made accusations saying this is what's happening. They're sex trafficking. I haven't ever gommed on the mainstream rhetoric of child trafficking lingo, but I do present very viable questions that I do believe deserve an investigation, in the very least, and a public discussion and concern when we're speaking in the realm and context of child trafficking, child protection, and safety. And so we have to understand that the National Center, prior to the National Center being established and the taking and disappearance of my brother Adam Walsh, Biden and others were already shopping legislation dealing with child protection and safety, but they were having trouble finding a sponsor because this wasn't a huge issue at the time, and because people didn't want the government involved in their families and children and things like that. So we have, that going on prior to the disappearance of my brother Adam Walsh, the little boy with the baseball bat. Most people would recognize that from. And before Adam was disappearing, on the other end, we have John Walsh working in, which, the media narrative when this happened was John and Reve Walsh. They're a, grieving, just average working class family in South Florida. And the mother this innocent mother goes to the mall, leaves her son, and he's taken and murdered by a stranger and decapitated. And it's a very jarring, graphic, emotionally charged, gory, case that's put out. The reality is that John Walsh was already in the hotel business as a hotelier, working and overseeing the out island boards in the Bahamas, in the islands. And Paradise Island, he was the week that Adam actually disappeared, he was in the middle of a $26 million deal with Paradise Grand Hotel and Casino. If people study the history of Paradise Island, you will find that it was heavily inundated, owned Meyer Lansky, involved with Iran-Contra, trafficking of all sorts, because we know that drugs, humans, arms, all of that go hand in hand. And that was what was going on at the time historically. My father and his buddy have bragged, Hank Asher, who comes up as one of the puppet masters, or the names that don't come up that people really should know about. But his buddy Hank Asher, they brag that they are buddies from their quote unquote Bahama days. He was an ex-Iran drug smuggler, Iran-Contra, drug smuggler, and turned to the father of, basically the godfather of data in America and extending globally, with the creation of TLFO. He does things with NCIC, but he is the creator of LexisNexis search engine, the Matrix technologies, and different things of that nature. He and my father were actually working behind the scenes. I remember being home from college in a different bid for to basically handle national security. They did a bid against different countries, and I remember my father coming home pissed off that they had lost the bid to a foreign company. And so they were really doing stuff like that. Hank Asher was also involved with the Jeb Bush election fraud, messing with data and databases and, criminal records and different things like that to install Jeb Bush into Florida to extend the Bush crime family, if you will, territory, creating those relationships between Texas and Florida. But going back to the National Center, we have to understand that because once Adam happens, my father's in the Bahamas. He's involved in these different things between the Bahamas and also the Diplomat Hotel, which has a rich history itself, really, where media, politics, and Hollywood really came together, so on and so forth. I've gone into extensive, podcasts and different things about that. And so then we have Adam goes missing, and then we have all of a sudden a sponsor for this child protection and safety legislation that Biden and Senator Hawkins and different people were all pushing, and John Walsh and his buddies, we have found, allegedly were under investigation by the Canadian Royal Mounted Police in the Bahamas, and all of a sudden John Walsh is the oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I thought I glitched out for a second.
Perfectly.
Okay, thanks guys. Is all of a sudden the sponsor for this new legislation, and they do movies immediately. My parents are put in the media while they're still looking for Adam. They immediately make 2 movies out of it, Adam and Adam His Song Continues, which, we believe, in my opinion, and what we've seen, created alibis for the Contra friends that were under investigation and for John Walsh himself. And then, we have this organization, though, that comes out of this. So my point in breaking that part down is when we go into the future, and also in hindsight, looking at what national missing children or children's murder cases or anything have been platformed on the national media. We always question, why are some, put on the news and some aren't? And really, we start to look at, what are those families' associations? Was there legislation prior? I like to kind of compare it to the Jussie Smollett. We knew that was for the lynching, legislation, and had, that been a believable hoax that he had pulled off, that would have been the gold for them. He would have then become a sponsor for a lynching legislation that then the people would have, a lot of the people, or a good majority, would have been behind, so on and so forth. So that, like, Hegelian dialect, if you will, seems to also possibly apply in this scenario. Nonetheless, you fast forward, we have now, presidents and Congress, actually, they want you not only to believe that this was a working class innocent family, but that it's a nonprofit grassroots organization, which the National Center was founded by Congress. It is funded by the DoD. It is backed by the DOJ, FBI, CIA. And this is all who publicly also back John Walsh. And they are funded $40 million a year, approximately, give or take. And that's only in our federal tax money. That's not including the $18 to $20 million a year of private donations, like from Meta, Mark Zuckerberg. And that's what led me to start asking a lot of questions when Epstein came out, because L Brands, which is Les Wexner's front operation, Les Wexner being the funder and backer of Epstein through his L Brands company, was donating, working with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for over 14 years. During that period, Epstein also had power of attorney for Les Wexner, under the quote from Wexner stating that he was taking a back seat to basically focus on his quote unquote philanthropy. And now what we're learning about Epstein and the use of NGOs of him, it's being pointed out, and many people know he met with the Clintons 17 times. in the White House, but we haven't talked about the fact that it was 17 times in the White House prior to ASFA being pushed through, which is the American Safe Families Act, which is what put bounties on our children's head through Title IV funding. And created the incentivized taking of our children, and those quotas and all of that. These are documented things. This is not conspiracy theory. This is how this system has been installed and into our American culture, which then we have become the hub. And if we also want to take it further to look at the speculation of Epstein's connections, whether that be Israel, Mossad, whatever, we have to think about, was he an acting agent coming in to install this system through the establishment of the National Center with the funding and lobbying rights and this structure and playbook that then allowed for things like the Clinton Foundation, Thorn, Child Focus in Belgium, which was the cover up was actually in response, but to the Dutroux affair and those crimes there, which then led to the development of the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which then extended this system out globally. And furthermore, then what Dave was talking about is we then have to go into looking at who are those players, who was originally behind the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It wasn't just John and Reve Walsh. It was Congress, like we just said, but there's Jeffrey Coons. Jeff Koons is a pop artist. He created the Koons Law Foundation because he was accused of molesting his own baby by his ex-porn star wife. When she fled to Europe with the baby to family, he then went through The Hague and through his connections and got his son back, made a foundation, and then created a great loophole there. He became then the law arm of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Within that, which is interesting, was also the law firm Sidley Austin, which comes up in a lot and is also affiliated to J.D. Vance, was the main international representation for the National Center for a long time, and while this transition was happening as well. Now, why that is significant, one of many reasons, staying with Jeff Koons here, is that Jeff Koons is known, and this is, again, Dave, we'll have to do a whole other space on the art and the symbolism and all of that side of Jeff Koons and all of the affiliations there, but we'll skip to the fact that Jeff Koons is most famously known for being the highest paid living artist for a piece of artwork. And that piece of artwork was the chrome rabbit. So I know a lot of people like to talk about adrenochrome, different things, but a chrome rabbit, adrenochrome, a white chrome is white. So there's a lot of
Yeah, I mean, it's
symbolism there
literally
that
like the most basic
right.
looking
It's in your
thing
face. Yeah.
ever. Yeah, and that's the most expensive piece of art. Like that blows my mind.
Well, and that's what I think pop, that's again another thing, but I think that that's what, pop art and modern art became, as a huge, money laundering scheme. I mean, I grew up in that. I actually have an installation piece. My bachelor's is in painting and graphic design. Actually, ironically, in North Carolina, right where Angela is talking about, is where I went to university and thereafter. So there's a lot of connections there. It gets even weirder down the line. But nonetheless, I was in school. I was an installation artist. We all talk about Hunter Biden's art and all of this. Well, I was brought into that way before Hunter ever knew. I guess I'll make a bad joke there. But, I sold my first paintings out of college. My first painting sold for $10,000 and my second sold for $8,000. And it was at a huge fundraiser in Alexandria, Virginia, at the headquarters of the National Center. And who bought those paintings was the gentleman I just brought up a little bit ago, Hank Asher. And that's really when I started wondering, like, what the heck is going on here? Because I didn't really question that deeply. I was in college at that point, but you're a 20-year-old, 20-something-year-old. And I'm like, well, that's funny. My dad's buddies are basically just donating for the tax write-offs to his organization. And then he'll, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of a thing. So that's an interesting, I'm taking notes all these years.
Did you
So
have any
I
idea like that you were gonna that kind of money was gonna get thrown at you that night?
No, I was all worried about whether I was going to be able to make, enough money to be some sort of a chunk to say I donated, but I ended up making $30,000 off of, 7 pieces of art, and I donated half of it a week after graduation out of college. So to me, that was a huge accomplishment. And the unveiling of my, installation piece on permanent display in a legislative building, that was what my focus was, and doing the best that I could. um but no, I did not expect that chunk of money. But again, I didn't think much of it because these are huge donors, these are high power people. I mean, the head of the Secret Service was at my show. These are the people that were in the circle. A lot of people think, the black leather jacket and America's Most Wanted, but the main life that I've lived with John Walsh is in politics. It's where it started and what it's always been, behind the scenes. And I think that that's what people really don't understand, which is wild because so many people are making the correlation of people like Diddy and maybe working with the feds or different things the other way, but not looking at John Walsh, who is the face of policing and agency and, child everything, and become this authority, this savior complex, things like that, that we're not questioning, or looking at maybe. But again, we have to go back to the national center and who these players are and what's been involved. I mean, we've got Jeff Koons that I talked about. Where I was going with that was that when he sold that Chrome Rabbit, he sold it through a major auction house in New York, and it sold for 92 point something million to Steve Mnuchin's father, who is a billionaire art collector behind the scenes, and he gifted it to a Cohen. And what that really did, aside from other things, really established Jeff Koons as, as an authority in art, right? Gave him status aside from the money. And with that, he was able to then be put into place in the Arts and Embassy program under Hillary Clinton with Marina Abramovich. Um, and so these people are all connected. Then they develop, and he goes into developing the International Center, and that is funded and co-founded with not only the World Economic Forum, Victor Haldersplat, and other nefarious characters, but Richard Branson himself, while he's donating, around the same time to the founding of Terramar, a sovereign water territory and a global child's authority initiative. I mean, what are we talking about here? That goes back to, again, I think the least we can do is be questioning these things, looking at these things. If we're, all researching, we're all looking at all these different players that have been in our face forever. We know about Bill Gates. We know about, if something's true, we know what that would be about, so and so and so and so, the Bill Clinton, whatever. But we need to be looking at these people that are behind the scenes and what these organizations, we're realizing about these NGOs, and we're talking about it, but we're sticking to the border, we're sticking to Catholic charities, or we're like pigeonholing. And I know that it's a lot to grasp and try to understand. We have to take our lane, or Megan, this is so big, or it's so hard to hear, whatever. But it's not this gory, crazy thing that was put out originally. Like, yes, those things happen, but we can't, like we're learning about Epstein, we can't do anything about those. That's not to say not to care about. I'm not talking like Cindy McCain style. Yeah, we all know, what are we going to do? I'm not talking like that. I'm saying there are things that we can do to be preventative, even, and to change the future for our children, that these things distract us from realizing, if that's fair. Just speaking off the cuff. But when we're looking at people like Les Wexner donating to the National Center, and we're looking at, how this organization even started, what was allowed through it, how did we get to the system of CPS and family court being a civil administrative tribunals that are taking our children forever with no even crimes or due process. We have to start asking these things. And when we see donors and board members on authorities like the National Center who are involved, not only the obvious ones like Branson and Coons and things that are connected to what's on everyone's mind right now, Epstein, that we need to be looking at, and what I've been talking about for years, and why they came after and took my children. They didn't sue me for defamation. They put out allegations on public record, which like Angela was saying, all those people and trolls and paid accounts love to bring up, and people take it as fact. The things about me that are in the public are only allegations that were against me. There was no actual findings within the case because it was kept behind closed doors. That is the nature of CPS and family court. They hide behind, in the interest of the children, because there's minors, this has to stay closed, this has to stay private. They can do gag orders, all of that, which they did do to me, and threaten jail and terrorize me and everything, but that's for another time. The point here is that, we have to understand how we're allowing this and what is wrong with it. And that these players of these authorities, like the National Center, like Thorne, really at the end of the day, this is about big tech. This is about data collection on our children. Obamacare gets the DNA and the blood type in the hospital. Amber Alert searches if a parent or somebody, gets their child away from the CPS trafficking, or there's family court corruption that's going on and they can't take it anymore. Their child's threatening to run away. And now we've got the nation under an Amber Alert looking and hunting them down for the system. We have to really be looking at these policies and whether these organizations and their policies are actually working in the best interest and for the benefit of the American people, especially children and their families. We talk about children's rights all day long, but we're violating children's rights every second. A child has a right to their biological family under God, and that should be at least until they're 18 and can make their own decision, whatever way that needs to work out. But the point here is that there's many ways to handle these things differently. We just have to look at the things that maybe we don't want to, or maybe it's not as glamorous as tunnels and adrenochrome and all this kind of stuff, or as wild, but that's the point of it. That's by design, because it's not fun to look at the fundamentals. It's not fun to look at auditing something, or which again, the National Center can act as a nonprofit and be free from FOIA, can not have to answer to things that a government agency over our children
Do
would
they
have
have
to.
any oversight at all? Like who's the one that's in charge of making sure they're not doing something nefarious?
Well, technically the DOD is supposed to.
But we've already established the corruption at that level. And Jason Sand talked about that.
Yep.
But you've touched on so many subjects though that I kind of wanted to correlate. Just because the family history, and you're talking about the way that we live, the way that we were groomed from a childhood, it's really isolated. It's kind of controlled. Your whole life is designed for you.
It's behavior modification.
Yours was designed to be like a political figure and a face that would smile and take pictures. Mine was kind of the same, but in a military way.
Mm-hmm. It's behavior modification. I mean, I don't think people think about children of celebrities or children raised in the military or different things like that, because I agree with you. It's behavior modification. You're not allowed to grow and thrive and decide what you want to be, or again, that's probably a whole other space, but it very much correlates. You're right. I mean, I will say, and I have said before, I was forced under ultimatum at 28 years old, at the height of my fashion career, with my own company, launching it New York Fashion Week, living in India. All of this, I all of a sudden was, tricked and told, oh, we had to do an interview about your brother Adam at Dateline. You need to come up to the Essex House Hotel in Manhattan beforehand. I said, this is it was Friday night out or whatnot during Fashion Week in Manhattan, which is, we have two big weeks a year for seasons, and I had my PR company and different events lined up already. And I went to the hotel and they said, no, you have to do it. They knew I would drop anything, about an interview about Adam. And so I went up there and they have this weird, D-list nephew of a D-list actor there in a suite. And I swear, one of the first things I said is a camera crew coming out of the back room, but they had an intervention and staged this entire thing with an ultimatum, just like you hear the stars say, oh, if you start to break programming or start to get on your own, then they bring you in and they reprogram you, yada yada. Well, it's not so wild sounding, it's pretty fundamental. They sit you down, they say, oh, this is, we have an issue with this. They make up something, they give you an ultimatum saying, if you don't do what we say, then we're not going to fund you anymore, or we're not going to do this or that. And at that point, when you're in it, that project or whatever they're threatening, they give you everything. And then if you don't comply, then that's when they take everything away. So you go along with it because, especially something like my fashion brand, that I had worked hard for that, and that was my intellectual property, and meaning revenue, and that's your way out, is what you're thinking. A lot of us think at the time. So you go along with it. I go out to Passages Malibu. I have to get on a flight. They've got some black SUV that picks me up and takes me to Malibu. And I'm with, these sons of Cuban drug lords, and the daughter of the script reader for Adam Sandler movies, and all these kind of like cult kids. And they're all on heroin. I didn't go for any substance abuse. I've never had a substance abuse issue. I've never had a mental breakdown. I've never had anything like that. I went out there, and why I'm speaking to this is because I would joke when I was out there that this wasn't a rehab. It was like an X-Men Institute. And people that are familiar, the Prentice, Chris Prentice, and they claim that they have the cure for addiction. And that was very controversial for a while in the 2000s. And so I go out there, and I decided, like everything in my life, I've made the best of what I could. And I played tennis again for the first time. I had great acupuncture and all that. But we'd go to lunch, and then we'd have about a half an hour break, and then we'd have our scheduled hypnosis session. And then we would go from that to our energy therapist. And everyone loved the energy therapist. And one day I go in and I'm having a session with him. And he says, okay, we're going to drop in. We're going to sit in front of each other. You're going to look at me. I'm going to look at you. And we're going to drop in. And when we come back out of the meditation, you're going to tell me what you saw. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And we sit there, and I'm looking at him. And in front of me, and again, I'm at a quote unquote rehab for 28 days or whatever for $100,000 by the agency, paid by the agency. And which our agency that owns us is William Morris Endeavor, one of the largest in the world. And so I go there and I sit in front of him. We drop in, and his face started changing in front of me to a face of nothing, with black, where the eyes would be in the mouth. And then he literally started turning in my mind's eye. I mean, I'm not sitting there hallucinating, guys. I'm saying, in meditation, your mind's eye, but with my eyes open, looking at him, turns into this like lioness, not with a mane or a male lion, but like a lioness. And he says, okay, we're going to drop out, is the term. And he says, okay, well, tell me what you saw. I tell him. He says, oh yes, I get that. People tell me that a lot. And you, Megan, you turned in, your skin literally got darker, and you turned into this like Indian goddess. And you have special spiritual power. I mean, they're out there telling us that we have spiritual powers. And I go to look years later, because I was questioning a lot, and different people that I was there with had contacted me. And lo and behold, the therapist was a Rothschild. Um, and they were again they were having us do energy exercises, and I mean it was a wild ride. I could talk about again another night. I'll leave it there, but I want to validate that it is a wild world that people don't understand, and the things that are done behind the scenes and through the families or connections. There are parts that are very valid about that, and it's very wild. Another time I came home from college, and like I said, they start putting us in therapy and different things from a young age, to kind of shape that and start that behavior modification or whatever you want to call it. And my parents say to us, "Oh, well, you're home from college, Christmas is in a day or two. We have a therapist from California staying in the guest house, and she's going to do family sessions and all this." Mind you, my father's already come out on Larry King Live as a admitted sex addict and all of that, but we'll ignore that part. And we go, and they make me sit with my mother, who's always been my covert abuser. And I have to go this session, and we're talking. She makes us again sit in front. This was prior actually to the Passages incident, but she makes us sit again, looking at each other, my mother and I, and we're doing this session. And at one point in it, I'll never forget, she says to me, "Megan, what does the word spotlight mean to you?" And it was the most bizarre experience of my life. Again, at this point, I was in my early 20s, so I was, kind of angsty and questioning things. I always felt like I had to be the adult in this situation with this John and Reve with my parents. And she looks at me and asks me that, and I immediately have a physical reaction. Like, I physically start breaking down, I start crying, I slouch over, excuse me. But cognitively, I'm thinking to myself and realizing, wait a second, like, why are you crying right now? Like, all she said was the word spotlight. Like, this doesn't make sense. And that's to speak to handlers and trigger words and things that they program, just like Angela mentioned, the childlike state, taking my children, putting me in that trauma, having the police that I've supported my entire life and trusted my entire life being the ones to participate and to aid and abet my father in doing this. All of this trauma was to induce a childlike state. When they took my daughter at 8 years old, she would come to visits and already be talking and revert into a child voice. Angela, go ahead.
Well, no, I think that's also something that's important to talk about, like the certain triggers. I usually always skip past that because I wasn't even always cognitively aware. If I'm going to be honest, people in the community that were trolling me pointed it out,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it kind of offends me if I'm going to be honest, because that's a whole nother level of scary. Because people talk and joke about it when you've gone through MK Ultra or those type of programs, that you're still under it and you're just not aware, and that's terrifying. It's terrifying to process that it could be a reality. It enrages me because, it doesn't matter to seem like how hard I try to just be a good person and, be transparent and have integrity and just do whatever I can with the cards that I'm dealt, that there's always a chance that at any moment in time, someone could just say a word, bring back a memory, or, you know what I mean? And then you're stuck in that chapter, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Was
I
it?
do. And first of all, the Lord does not give us a spirit of fear. So we don't even know what that is. And we're thankful for that. But I will say that that's a real thing, and it's designed to be that way. That's
And
what,
people
we
take advantage of that. There are people that'll literally
well,
like listen to you talk about this stuff, and then they'll bring up those topics intentionally to cause that emotional response. And I'm aware of a
absolutely.
couple of mine. But something that like really bothers me is like you were talking about handlers. I know two of them. One of them have been around my entire life. He's retired seventh group. I know he works for the Pentagon. He travels between embassies. I don't know what he does. But he's my constant person that I've had throughout everything. And
Yeah.
I was supposed to marry his son. Like my whole life was planned out for me. I just ran away when my dad was deployed in Afghanistan because I was going to go find my mom. And the thing is,
Right.
like the corruption, my sealed adoption file being missing, there's only one individual that had the security clearances and the money to get that done. And nobody wants to hold these people accountable. I'm denied access to finding out who my birth father is solely because of bureaucratic bullshit. And I've already paid money for the 23andMe DNA test. I've already paid money through the Ancestry. That's 2.5 years now of waiting, and I've not gotten any of the results. And I'm like, how are we supposed to move forward when it's just wall after wall after wall, journalist after journalist, and I have all the messages, the phone numbers, the texts that they've said with me of how they're going to help me. And as soon as they look into my grandfather, which I thought was odd because I thought it would be my grandma that would be the one that shut them down, but whatever my grandfather was involved in, that's classified that I can't freaking see, is enough to make every single person
No,
stop helping me.
well, it's witchcraft. So it's the cognitive to the spell over the masses. And it's a joke because, and they laugh because they literally have the masses saying that we care about children, we care about change, we're going to fight, spend all this energy, all this loose energy, let it go, do all of that. And then nothing's going to be done, and they're also going to be okay with it, and everything's going to be done in plain sight. And in a parallel reality, there are survivors and victims, true victims. I mean, there's children being taken and trafficked and tortured as we're on this space and everyone's listening, that don't have to be if we actually could get rid of this. I mean, this is
That's the problem. Is how do you get people to go to these locations? Because I've already named locations. Fayetteville, North Carolina is a hot zone. Anderson Creek and
it's not
Spring Lake is a hot zone.
it's not gonna we can't be so just pinpointed. We have to understand an overall notion and an issue, and then be able to apply how does that affect us personally, because that's how we can do something within our circle. We have to stop thinking big, and we can't save the world. We can't care about what everyone thinks about us, or whether, and I grew up in media, I grew up
I mean,
with
I think that's the
headlines
hardest
and
part for me is shutting down that barrier. Because, like, yeah,
like
I understand and I want to be selfish, but to me, that's selfish. So, like, if I chose to do like something that's self-sacrificing, I
no,
physically feel like I've been trained to feel like that's
no,
wrong.
it's putting the mask on yourself on the airplane before you can help anybody else. We can't, you people have to, everybody, not just victims, survivors, it's not just about that. Everybody in their own right. You have to have a good foundation. You have to put the mask on yourself. And now I'm going to get a little esoteric, guys, or a little off topic, but we all have hardship. We all have, and I don't even swear in here, we all have shit, guys. And that's especially in CPS and family court, the big holdup is that everyone's trying to act like they don't have shit. Okay. And it's an inverted approach that we're taking to a lot of things. So it's about, we all care about this big change and these big notions, and that's great to hold in our hearts and in that space. And I'm just speaking from my perspective. So, and humbly, this is what I have to offer and share. You don't have to agree with me, and I'm open for discussion because that's how we get better and to closer to a place of that being a reality. But we all have hardships, and we're all unique, but we all experience hardships in very similar ways in this world. And so if we can realize what those lanes are, when you experience something like I explained earlier, you become like an expert in it, right? If you've had cancer, you look into, most people, you learn everything you can and you try to heal it, and you do, so on and so forth. So then you have a testimony, right? After that, and you can go forth with that, and that's how you can support and help, or help prevent, or whatever that purpose is, or that path in that lane, if that makes sense. And it kind of takes away competition. It's a way that we can all come together, help each other. I know it sounds very lovey-dovey, but it's pretty fundamental, and it's pretty much under God and how it was designed. So we don't have to have everyone agree. We don't have to have everyone believe. We know the percentage that it takes to change something. And the issue that we're all focused on, being the children, is one, again, that touches everybody in some way, shape, or form. It's not a political thing. This is the one uniting issue, and it's the root. The things that we're dealing with today, and I'll land here, the things that we're dealing with today with corruption and all of that, it's hurt people that are making bad decisions and are choosing things because of the way that they were raised or because of their trauma. And that could, again, people can argue that out. That would be a longer discussion. But for point's sake, we all are showing up with our own shit. And if we can kind of come together and realize what is fundamental, and I'm not saying on everything we have to agree, but in the realm of child safety and protection, in the very least, what I'm asking for is for us to come together and talk about these real issues, talk about what is really protecting, what are modern predators against our children. It isn't, the stranger danger and the predators of the 80s and things like that. We have to be looking at teachers and doctors. And so we all, I think, would agree here on that these days. So why we need to redefine, we need to relook at and get rid of the witchcraft of this word hope that's always used. If you look, the word hope is always used on child organizations, child initiatives, efforts. And what does the word hope do actually? In word magic and in all of that, what does the word hope do? Dave got it right earlier when we were touching on what we were going to talk about, and I'm glad it's coming up again naturally because the word hope takes power away from us. It's looking up to something, in children's efforts. We hope that this child will be found. We hope that change will happen. We hope. And that's not aligned. That's an inverted use of the word. And that's what we're seeing with the system that we're dealing with today. The good out of it is that we can, if we want to come together and stop the division and just talk about those things, it is the one thing actually in this world that the people can do something about because we have power in our communities and on a local level.
So, like, I agree on a lot of your points that you were speaking. I mean, I'd like to see a lot more unity, a lot more people, whether we agree or not, just standing in solidarity and fighting back. I think that there's multiple layers of corruption, though, that we're going to have to address head on. And I think legislatively is the only way that we can kind of combat that. And to do that, we need politicians, lawyers that have integrity, that's not scared to piss off people and potentially ruin their career, because if we're going to be honest, taking this head on
In
does
the
that.
children's issue now. In the
And
children's issue, yeah, corruption
um
needs to be addressed, but in the children's issue, the
yeah,
issue there is the federalizing of the children's issue. It needs to go
I
back
know,
to
I just
states and
wanted
it
to
needs to
finish.
be handled hands-on for oversight, transparency, and accountability.
Yeah, the amount of like power and oversight that we give these people over our families is insane. Um, and that all started with Reagan in the National Center, Megan.
There were cases like Eton Patz that led to the National Center and then later Johnny Gosh. So there were surrounding cases, but yes, it was obviously my brother's was propped up and made national and became the poster for that then led to those things.
Because like we were saying, we think law enforcement, if they had another kind of branch that was, or whatever. I mean, like there's just too much oversight on that to the point where they can just pick apart and destroy people for any reasons. What were those like parameters you said that they can take you by?
Right. Well, and I want to just respectfully correct that. It's not too much oversight. It's that there's not enough oversight on what really
Yeah.
is supposed to be happening. There's absolutely no transparency. We have to understand that this is a system that's designed to be running exactly as it is today. And if we look at that and we change the perspective of the terminology, if you will, for point's sake, when we're looking at it as these people are kidnapping our children and trafficking them, then you have to be looking at, how is that happening? What are
and then
these
we're
different?
silencing them in adulthood.
Well,
We
right.
silence them.
Well, and that's what extended to a point that you touched on was your, private adoption. And people are thinking adoption is this beautiful thing and so great. It's the selling of our children. And private adoption agencies are
But I
the
don't
most
even think you
dangerous.
guys understand how it works. Like, you're adopted into a family, but you don't belong. You're just a puppet on a string to follow orders, take pictures, do what you're told, don't speak unless spoken to. Like there's all these different rules and regulations, and you think that's normal. You have no outside influence, no outside connections other than the people that are
Well,
predetermined for you.
and there's
And then
and
never
sorry.
mind. Jesus.
No, no. Yeah. Well, and I didn't mean to cut you off, honey. I'm so sorry because you're right. The thing on that is that nowadays, and you'll agree, and I'm not going to say anything people probably don't already know. And we've gotten to the point where not only that, but you're being adopted and raised in a home that's or fostered also in homes that are collecting checks. We have stacked foster homes and people that are basically just taking in children so that they can have the car out front and collect the checks from the government and whatnot. So that's part of it as well. But I don't think people understand that's also how trafficking happens. I mean, when adoption happens, you can change the child's name, you can do whatever you want, and it's not followed up on. Also, what a lot of people who praise Reagan or just are unaware, maybe it's not in their, in their conscience, is the fact that Reagan, he had this, everyone gives him credit for this great adoption initiative and everything, but really what that did was it positioned children subconsciously in terms of animals. His adoption initiative was saying basically that you could pick a child, you adopt the child, and if it doesn't work out, you can return the child. Furthermore, that it's probably most likely the child's fault that it didn't work out, and that you can look for another child, pick another child to take home. And that people also, on top of it, don't realize is still going on today. They're holding fashion shows for preteen or the youth that haven't been adopted and are a little older, where they're having them walk out on runways in rooms of strangers, whoever could possibly potentially be an adoptive parent. And they are given what to the child from the child's perspective. Here you have 1 minute to walk down the runway and convince, somebody to take you home and, want you. And, people are, especially men, adopting children and little boys. They take them home, abuse them, and then they return them and say, oh, this child's unruly or he's got issues or whatever. And it's horrific. If you go on TikTok and you put in hashtag adoptee with two E's on the end, what I was saying earlier, where people think that we don't have state raised children, that we don't have children raised in the system. There are so many people under that hashtag, like yourself, Angela, that are growing up and saying, you know what? I was told my whole life that my family didn't want me. And I found out that my family fought the whole time for me. Or, I was told that I should be happy because I got this mansion and this house and everything. But there was also a biological child. And boy, was I made to know who the biological child was and who that I was adopted, so on and so forth. There's so many things like you touched on that are the realities for children that are, yes, we already have state raised children. We already have children that have been raised by our system. And to think that we don't is a huge selective naivete at this point.
Yeah, the foster system is absolutely crazy. I actually dated a girl when I was in my 20s that went through the foster system all the way since she was a baby, and then she finally like settled in with somebody who was like happened to be her social worker when by the time she was like 16. She just bounced around to so many families by the time she was 16, and
Oh, yeah.
just like horrible stories. Like she not any good stories did she have for to say on it. So yeah, it's a really messed up system, and I don't know the answer to it, but yeah, it's fucked
Well,
up.
we do know, Dave, that over, and this is from the National Center and the FBI themselves, their own statistic. This was another thing that got me questioning all of this from the beginning. When I read the statistic that 88 to 92%, roughly, I'm sure it's changed over the years, had of trafficking, of child trafficking comes from the foster care system itself. First of all, you're pointing out that statistic, and what are you doing about it? If this is the national center, where's John Walsh on Epstein? Where's the national center with legislation to not have children being taken from their homes and
And
trafficked for profit?
instead, he
Where
has a show about sensationalized crime. That's
yeah.
that's literally
Yeah.
like a 0.5% of of
Exactly.
accounts for this stuff. Yeah,
It's just like the inversion of, we know statistically that the best thing for a child is, even if there is domestic abuse, if there's substance abuse, whatever in a home, we know statistically that the best thing for that child is to remain in that primary environment. The point is that we're supposed to be healing that primary environment. We're supposed to love thy neighbor as thyself. We don't throw away. Right now, we throw away the parents, terrorize them when they're at their lowest point or at a
We do
point to
the
be
same to
doing
the
that stuff.
children. Everybody else speaks for us, but they don't actually care to listen. If we're going to be 100% honest, we're the ones walking it off, dealing with the trauma, having to explain it over and over and over again, but we only get to surface level. We can never get past it. It's only compartmentalized. And it doesn't matter how long you speak out to it. I mean, I've literally been saying it since I was 5 years old. There's documentation, there's police reports. Like, I was 5 years old with blisters on my feet in summer in August running to get to my grandma's. Like, I've literally had to fight for my life. Like, run scared. Like, that was my normal. Like, I didn't understand that that was not how everybody else was raised. And then people resented me more in my adulthood for not being like them. Like, you're supposed to just go through all that shit and come out fine so that you can extend yourself for other people. Like, it's just, it's really gross. And when you look at the childhood torture, the stuff that they did, the fear tactics they utilize, especially when it comes to psionics and that type of research, they needed that fear for control. It's not that they couldn't do the same thing without that. It's That's not their objective. They didn't want to do it within the capacity to cause good or to understand. They did it because they wanted to weaponize it.
well, now how do you guys focus on healing? I mean, we're talking about all this dark stuff. Um, Angela, how were you able to kind of break free from the horrors you were living in your younger years, and when did that kind of turn for you?
Well, I'm blessed that I have children, so my kids kind of were my primary focus to stay busy because you can't really give up when you have other people watching you. And not just that, I didn't trust anyone with them because, you know, the same people, I didn't want that to happen to them. But if I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really lived. I've been stuck in this survival mode because I thought there was help out there. I thought that there would be answers. I thought there'd be clarity. And the more I dig, the deeper it gets. And the more disheartening it is because, like you were talking about that word hope, I had a lot of that. And I still have faith. That's something nobody can take. But I had a lot more hope that people would care about the ones that this is happening to now. Like, I can understand that they might not care about what all I had to run through and walk through and fight. I just can't understand fighting with people that are trying to bring awareness just because you want us to be wrong. That's ego. And it's like, what about me and my personality and the way that I am that makes people want to act that way? Is it because I'm abrasive? Is it because I'm going to go at you if I see you bully someone? Is it because I don't fit into the category of what you think a victim is supposed to be? Because I can assure you that even though I'm strong most days, there are days that I can't even get out of bed. There are days, especially if you ask the people closest to me, that I mean, I repeat things. You know, you think and you talk about it, that it's gone, you can go to therapy, that issue is fine, but that's not how it works. It's kind of like a roller coaster ride with ups and downs and turns and um, broken parts along the way. And you don't have any control. There is no break and there is no soft landing. So it's like, how are you supposed to navigate telling the truth? Because when you get to the past, we didn't even touch really what they were doing. Like, when you look into the what the military and the government is studying with children and psychic research, for one, why would they even go to that level? And then two, what they were trying to do and what they did do. It's gross. You mean, you look at Hollywood, you have Stranger Things. That's based on a collective of multiple people's experience, not just one Montauk starting it, you know. But There are documents out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base from 1984 and 1986. I need to send that to you. That they openly talk about testing on children for psychic research. Like, it's not the years that I needed. I need it specifically from 1991 to 1999. That's the years I'm looking for. Or I'd like for the military to stop dragging their feet and give me access to my TRICARE records. Because with those records and my journals, I can correlate the dates and the times with the doctor associated with that visit and handle things legally on at least a larger scale. The problem that I have, though, is it's 4 different jurisdictions: Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is in North Carolina, and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and then Springfield, Ohio, because my adopted mother doesn't live on base. She lives in Springfield, which I know you guys heard about, a couple of years ago when they were talking about they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. They bust those people out there to cover up the real story. There's a human trafficking ring happening out of there. It's all across Ohio. It's a really large network, and it branches out into other states. And that they utilize tunnel systems and highways to move these people. And the kids, dude, a lot of them are runaways. A lot of them come from these type of foster systems. Like, I met a lot of kids in Ohio that were dealing with these type of same things. We didn't even get to touch on the GATE program and how that affects and what they were searching for and the different type of testing, because they had like the green headphones and they had the tan ones. Each one of those did different things. Like, there was a lot of tech. Like, I've been in spaces talking to other people talking about they didn't have a computer until like the end of elementary school. And like, I remember my entire childhood always having technology around. Like, that was normal. There just wasn't people.
So, I mean,
Sorry, Dave. Real quick, anyone
yeah.
that is really interested in the CPS and family court and all that stuff and wants to know more information specifically on the system and that kind of stuff, there's Shannon is in here right now. I just wanted to give a shout out while I saw her. I love you, Shannon. Go follow her. She puts up amazing stuff. She's got the facts. We have the spreadsheets. She's really been an integral part of all of this and really led the charge. So if you are interested in that, want to know more, she's great at responding and sending information, things like that. So just
She's
wanted to throw
very
that out there.
hands-on. She's an amazing person.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously, Dave, you asked about healing, and that became a big part of my life. That's what I was doing before they came and did all of this. It's what got me into advocacy, was really, going through to schooling and really focusing on not only how to help others heal, but first, obviously, healing myself, breaking generational curses and contracts, and looking at past trauma, how that affects me to this day. A lot, people don't realize that a lot of trauma from the past affects them in current times in ways they don't even realize. And it's not to always blame the past or look back, but it is for healing. And I really took the time to do that. It's kind of what led me to where I'm at right now, what got me here. And I'm very thankful. I don't think people really understand the fact that, technically, and to me, I'm now free for the first time in my life from a cult that I was born into, and I didn't have any say in, and I did my best. But like cults do, they shun you, they do the protocol, and they keep your children in, and they brainwash your children, they erase you. And it's exactly what's happening to me as we speak. And I have no justice because of who my family is and who I kind of live. I don't like to say it, but I do say I feel like I kind of live in this, purgatory, if you will, because I'm not in the cult. I'm not a celebrity, quote unquote, status where I would have, meaning where I would have the money and the connections and everything to handle this. But I'm also, and by choice, mind you, I'll say,
I wouldn't change it for the world. But I also, people, the public and the quote unquote people don't see me as one of them as well. They see me as the daughter of John Walsh. So I'm kind of stuck in this middle zone fighting for my children, trying to get the truth out. And, a great bonus would be justice for my brother Adam. I mean, we were horribly exploited to create this along with other children, countless children. And to be put through this, Angela's one and many others as well. Um, but for me, I will never stop fighting for my children. And what that means to me is for all of our children. I mean, I can have hope in the right way because I do feel blessed that, in the horror of all of this, I have been given a very realistic lane in it, and something that I will never stop saying. I've said many times tonight on the space that is a lane that we can actually do something about. I know people are discouraged. I know people are traumatized. I know people have experienced different aspects of the system or of these issues than even I have. But I really do have hope and healing in the fact that there are better ways. There are ways that people are now understanding and that are being broken down and explained and understood to the system that is tearing, our families apart and is ruining our children, which is our future and the root of all of it. So that really is healing to me. It's what gets me up every day. When I was a little girl, I would lay in bed and just ask the Lord, please just give me my true purpose. And I humbly can't think of a better purpose to be given under God than to care about protecting our children, for the here and now as well as the future, and to also, care about the past that doesn't go away. So for me, that's been very healing, and also to be able to be support for others through this, and to be an advocate, to court watch, to show up and do what I can. The rest is up to God, and at least I know I did my part. We are the body of Christ, and I do firmly believe that we need to start taking over the land again with light and with the morals and the actions of good, no matter what you believe. And I know that we can do that if we talk about it, if we just break it down simply and take the drama and the agency tactics and the psyop tactics and all of that out of it. I think that that's a good place for humanity. I'm never going to stop speaking that. I'm never going to stop striving for that. And I think that we've seen huge progress amongst the horrible stuff over the past years. So I'm going to, stick with that.
I'm just going to keep going to move forward and bring awareness. I'd like to have a chapter of peace if it's allowed, just because this has been really exhausting and it kind of keeps you stuck in a state of hypervigilance, which causes a lot of long-term side effects. And I'd like to see more people speaking out about what they've gone through. I'd like to see a lot more unity and maybe coming together with our evidence collectively and trying to map it out as a whole. Oh, I think we're having some technical issues.
Yeah, I think we lost Megan there, but yeah, I like what she had to say about healing and everything, and you're definitely gonna get that stage, Angela. You deserve it more than anybody. That's for damn sure. Um, so you just keep fighting, and I would love to deep dive onto some of these military operations and projects that you know about. Some of them I've never even heard of that you had spit out. They sound pretty fascinating and interesting. And I mean, just when the military's involved in stuff like this, trying to induce psychic ability and through abuse, it's hard to process, but it's actually, you're a testament, your grandmother and everything and all that is just that this stuff is actually going on. So it's just very, very nuts.
Oh, good, she's back. But it is nuts. And when you start to process the levels that it goes and that this is happening on a mass scale and that it ties into Hollywood and it ties into all this stuff, especially when you look at like Britney Spears, like that's a prime example of that done for media purposes to like mind control and hypnotize and mesmerize an entire generation to consume, to sexualize women from a young age. Like, I mean, if you look at the entire dynamic of the 90s and the early 2000s, it was very grooming like behavior. And that was the status quo. That was normalized. That
Yeah, it
was
really
kind of shoved
was.
down our throats.
It really was. Yeah, looking back, it was like hypersexualized.
Kanye came out with a college dropout and a teddy bear, so we won't go there. And changed. Now we've got a whole hip hop and rap and everything that is towards pills and hoes and everything else that even their own community are talking about and have an issue with and are realizing. So it's interesting to watch that. I was just going
I,
off. Sorry, I came back
yeah,
in
no,
with the Britney
I've seen
Spears.
this. I've seen this thing called like looks maxing, and like these some of these new
Yeah.
streamers, like they're like, it's insane what they're pushing on the kids. Like
Well,
these people are like doing drugs on live stream, and like they're getting all celebrated. It's just wild.
mhm. Well, there was like conscious rap before, and stuff where they were talking about what was really happening to them every day and how they got out of, a bad situation they were born into and it motivated people and, things like that. And then we saw this shift. I mean, it's documented hip hop, if you will, for just to be
But
quick
it's
about
kind of
it.
like the
They,
label's fault.
okay.
They promote you to do that, right? They promote that type of music that's lower vibrational because frequency holds power. And the US government and the US military are weaponizing frequencies, not just on American people, but like it's too much to like deep dive into, but when you look at the fact that you have an energetic field, everybody emits its own electromagnetic frequency. Energy can't be destroyed, but it can be transmuted from one form to another. You can understand that everything can be manipulated or bypassed through an equal or opposite energy. So, like when it comes to this type of situation that we're dealing with the government, they're making a digital form like of yourself, like a digital copy that ties exactly into your energetic field. So like say right now this is Isaac's space, however many people is in here are tethered through him, so he's like absorbing the energy, he's like the common denominator. So like I'm a co-host, Megan is a co-host, well, just because she's glitched, we're also siphoning that energy. We can transmute it. The government has learned how to weaponize that to achieve their goal. They're shifting timelines, portals. Y'all don't understand it. The shit that they've messed with is dark. And I don't even talk about aliens because I didn't experience that. I've only seen one UFO. I've dealt with spirits, paranormal entities, interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call them, since I was a little girl. I still interact with it. They're very open. They answer yes no questions. They'll turn lights on and off. They're very active. No clue why. I'd like to know that. I'd also like to know, why my family was doing these things and why they are using this stuff for bad when you could do it for you could do so much more good. Like if you have the capability to find whistleblowers that are speaking on this stuff that have taken all the most utmost precautions, because like Christine Nicole Spirit, I need to say her name because she's been missing on this app for 2.5 years and all y'all fucking forgot about her, and she was exposing satanic ritual abuse in Seattle, Washington, and her name is Kristine Nicole Spears, Speers. I would recommend going in, or the Spears. I'd look up her Substack or her Facebook. I found her after she had already gone missing, but she had tagged her entire family, where she said the bodies were buried. Everybody that was involved in her case. Nobody had told her to keep cards in her pocket to stay safe. And that's something that I think other survivors and whistleblowers should take into accountability. Like when you come forward and start speaking about this stuff, not only are the good people watching you, but the bad ones are going to be watching you too. And too much information can also sometimes be a bad thing for not only you, but your family. So speak on things, bring awareness to it so that people can do their own research, but keep the names and the personal information in your back pocket. So that way, you have a little bit of wiggle room so that you're not just expendable.
Oh, you cut off there, Angela. You still there?
Oh, yeah, I
Sorry, can
just
you
didn't
hear
want to
me?
talk forever. I wanted to share. Yeah.
No.
Okay, yeah.
I wanted to say thank you, Angela, for that and bringing that up. Also, Callie Burgandy was actually talking directly about Indian River County, and then what Angela's talking about the neighboring county with with Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie and all of that. She was talking about the whole area, and they went after her horribly. That's another space. Carol Deloach owns all of Children's Home Society in Florida. Her brother is Gator Deloach, the sheriff there, and they have terrorized and locked Callie up. DeSantis even extradited her back to keep her locked up and quiet. So I think a lot of people don't realize that many advocates, especially mothers, are in jail and have been targeted behind the scenes and terrorized and more. But I have to get going, and I want to end on a positive, actionable note, kind of shift gears for 1 second as I sign off. I want to thank you, Angela, for giving your testimony and sharing all of this with us. I think you did a wonderful, articulate job on it. I just wanted to be here for support and to add what I could. And Dave, I want to thank you for holding the space. As always, you're incredible and you're doing, getting this information out to so many people. And we're so thankful to you for having the balls to stand by us and all that good stuff. So, as far as me, before I sign off, I do want to just offer for those people that are interested or wondering, you told us all this information. What the heck am I going to do with it? Or what can I do? I have developed, and again, I haven't put anything out in all these years because this isn't about me. I want to work with people, and I'm not going to, obviously I'll still pursue efforts, but the point here is that it takes the people. We need people to come together. We need people to stand up, and we're not asking for you to put your life on the line or your family or anything like that. I have come up with a beginning concept called the Better Ways Initiative. It's if you are interested in getting active in your community, in your county, please reach out to me, DM me, whatever here, you can reach me and I'll check. But really it's about starting a non-punitive preventative resource center in your county, in your area, that really is there for families before it gets to any point or before there is intervention by the government. When we do stuff like this, we see, we can get small business owners in, we have the community come together. It's our responsibility to provide spaces and things for our youth to thrive in, not mental health facilities and pharmacy contracts, etc. And what we would really like to do is be starting these, and we will hold your hand and help you if you want to start something in your community, because we start to see lowered crime rates, we start to see higher statistics with thriving families, so on and so forth when we can implement this. And what that creates, and the point there in short, is that even if CPS, if nothing's done at the end of the day, this is a way we are all in our communities. We all have a commission and a council that we go to that accepts contracts and bids every year. And if we are showing in our community those statistics and higher success, then whether it happens or not, guys, we can get those contracts. We can get that funding. We can bring it back. And yes, it's going to take some work. It's going to take courage, but we're very blessed that it's laid out in a way that we have the proof, we have the we have the cases, we have everything needed to be able to approach this and have to be accepted for the, what they like to say, using theirs against themselves, but quote unquote the best interest of children. not only children, but our American families. So if you are interested in that, it's not some big, crazy, rescue mission or secret, top secret, anything. This is transparent, and we would be able to offer way more oversight into these issues and situations happening with our children, but in a way that has accountability as well and isn't just a free for all because it's a federal agency, because they're so far removed from the real issues and the real cases, so on and so forth. So there's just so many better ways that we can be handling these situations and really revert, if you will, the system to not be necessarily a system, but something that is supportive in what it's supposed to be for those in need.
That's awesome. Megan, you're completely brilliant and just like a total wealth of knowledge. So take advantage of that, guys. If she's offering her DMs and all that knowledge for you guys, definitely take advantage of it because she's the best. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Before you sign off, Angela, I'd like to give you the floor before we sign off here.
I really appreciate you taking the time to speak about this. I really do agree with Megan. Like, there's a lot of things that can be done, a lot of change that can be made, and I think that this is the step towards it. Speaking about it, I really do see a lot of progress in the past 5 years. I do see a lot of negative too, but I mean, at least they're exposing themselves now before it's too far in the future. So I guess there's a silver lining. It just can be really disheartening when you're dealing with it day in and day out. Some days are good, some days are bad. Um, every day is exhausting, but you get up because, you got people that are coming behind you, and we have to at least pave a way for them. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I'm just trying to be better than the day yesterday, and I'm trying to be better instead of bitter, and that is a daily struggle. Sometimes I win it, sometimes I lose it. But I'm just really thankful to see that there are people like you and Megan and other people on here that genuinely care. Hey Ocean down there has been helping me since year one on here. She's dealt with her own abuse. Like she's a firecracker. There are people on here that have taken time out of their lives to help us put stuff in order for you guys to see. And I appreciate them taking the time to do that because I don't have the emotional capacity to sit here and fight with a computer and all those pop-ups and all that stuff to do that. Like my brain doesn't work that way. Give me some research or a topic that you want to know about documents. I can find that in like 5 seconds flat. Let me find a predator online. I can identify him in like 10 minutes. That type of stuff I can do great. But when it comes to like the techie aspect of putting it in order, it's a struggle. So thank you for opening up these type of conversations where we can break it down. I know there's a lot more to go through, but it's way past my bedtime. And I'm going to pay for it in carpool tomorrow morning. Well, this so I'm just really honestly, I appreciate you guys coming in here and listening. Um, I'd appreciate if you look into like your local military bases, some of the projects out there, your local colleges. Um, look up statistics of human trafficking in your area. And you see something, say something. That's something that's really simple. Pulling out your phone and recording it. Like I will find out if your state's a one party state or a two party state. That's very important because if it's a one party state, you can record without telling the person on the phone and in person. When it's a second party state, though, you're going to have to tell them ahead of time. That's something good to know, though. Like I live in a one party state for my own safety. If you're dealing with this type of stuff, it's kind of good to live in those states because those type of states usually protect you with a little bit more legal way. But again, thank you, and I really hope you have a good night.
Yeah, you guys were awesome. Angela, I'd love to have you back on and talk about more. There's so many layers to your whole story and some of these military operations that you know about. I would love to talk about that stuff more. And Megan, I would love to go dig into the National Center and all that surroundings with that.
And the finder's cult. You should do some homework on that and how that ties
Well, I know
specifically to
Megan's
this.
like an expert on that, so I would love to have a.
Uh,
Yeah.
You remember that rabbit hole? That was like what, 3 years ago? That was a good one, man. There's a lot of documents that are declassified on that, but the way they hide them under in the reading room is they don't label them. So you have to type in certain keywords, and I have a list of them so I can forward them to you because it's extensive, but they're all hidden under numerical form with letters in there. They don't have an actual title.
Well, yeah, send it over. All the info, the better.
I'll just say the Finders cult didn't end.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I would love, because that's not a lot of people know about that one, and I think if we could do a whole space dedicated to that. The National Center, some of the players that we talked about, and how how they move around is super interesting because those names don't get brought up nearly not enough. So yeah, ladies, again, thank
Thanks,
you. It's
Dave.
been awesome. Love you guys, and let's run it back soon.
Love you. Thanks everyone that joined us tonight. God bless.
Yeah, thank you all.
Love y'all too. Have a good night.
Yep,
Thanks
God
for coming.
bless. Good night.